presented by Dano Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sun Belt Syndicate, the night when we preview the West Division. We've got a great lineup of experts for you tonight. Before we get started there, we want to thank our sponsors, of course, as always, presented by collegefootballdogs.com as we continue to release a plethora, I'm going to use that nice word there. I haven't used that word in who knows how long, but a plethora of information and stories previewing a number of teams across college football landscape. As always, also presented by Dano Seasoning, W Energy, and a brand new sponsor just today, just tonight, Fanplex Graphics. They've just launched their Troy posters. So they've got now one in the East, one in the West. It kind of matches up nicely because those were the two teams in the Sun Belt Championship just last year. So check them out, fanplexgraphics.com, and check out and see if you can get one of your favorite players on a poster. It's great stuff. I've got one literally hanging up in my son's room. He was the one who wanted that one. So a little shout out there to Fanplex. We are going to get right into it. Again, a real quick reminder before we get started with the first guest of the night tonight. This is a quicker look. We're not going to go game by game. These guys and girls all have stuff where they are going to spell that out completely for you. And so we will not be doing quite that intensive look tonight because we also want to recap all 7 teams without boring anybody. I want to welcome to the stage TJ Corman, who is joining us via audio only. TJ, I got you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Very nice. Nice and clear too, actually. So that's good.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm driving back from Virginia. So in the car and just trying to make sure I don't hit anybody and and make sure traffic is good.
Yes, that's why we're doing the audio only, the safe version. But we definitely want to have you along for this literal ride as you take it. And you were right there in JMU country, as you told me earlier.
Yeah, I was in JMU country. Well, near it anyway, in Harrisburg. Leaving there now, almost to Richmond, VA, where the Spiders reside.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, heading on back and happy to be here for sure. I'll tell you what, I'll take it on as long as I can, unless there's any craziness that happens on the highway.
Yeah. Be safe. That is the first and foremost thing. But obviously, if you can be with us, as always, we love to have you here, being a part of the show that you're helping build. So thanks for literally making the effort, even though it's not the easiest tonight. We are going to go right in the first guest of the night from the Warhawk Report and the Fun Belt podcast. Check those guys out. That's a good time. If you haven't checked them out, I'm sure most of you actually checked them out more than you've checked us out. But certainly give them a check out. Welcome to the show. Do you want me to go by Tibbs or Dusty, or it doesn't matter? Which one do you prefer?
What's the classic saying? Call me this, call me that. Just don't call me late for dinner.
There you go. I love it. Oh, man. And I want to give a quick shout out to our resident Texas State fan and number one fan as far as our podcast is concerned, with Artie Cat saying hello, Dominick TJ and Sun Belt Nation. And I'm sure hello to Dusty as well here. I got the pleasure to actually meet you for the first time ever down at Sun Belt Media Days, man. So that was cool to actually happen and get to finally meet in person.
It's great. It sucks that we actually have to work while we're there and we can't just hang out. You know, we try to do it after hours, but sometimes we're editing content and trying to, hang out, meet different people from around the league. And so it doesn't always get to be where we get to hang out, have fun and drink a beer, but definitely next year or somewhere down the road this season, we'll have to get together.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I wanted to try and make that Thursday night start, but it's just, I got a kid in sports. TJ's got kids in sports. So it's hard to try and get that done, especially when it's like school starting up, sports are starting up. It's just crazy all across the board, but it is nice. You got a nationally televised game essentially in that one. We'll hold off on that one actually, because we'll get your thoughts later on that. But let's start off with the important stuff first. You got some massive roster turnover. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the most in the conference. Is that right?
If not in the NCAA, 74 new players coming in. You know, I jokingly told Coach Bryant when we were at Sunbelt Media Days, I said it must feel like an NFL team, you know, where they put the sticker with your name on it, so you know who it is and what position you play. Because there were definitely a lot of new guys there. Some guys that I'm sure he was familiar with, whether they played for him at UAB, at New Mexico, or from the greater Spanish Fort or Mobile area. Guys that he's definitely familiar with. So it definitely gives them the leg up on getting the buy-in into this program as he tries to right the ship for the Warhawks.
No doubt about it. What about it's just hard to fathom that you have that many new guys. I mean, TJ, what was the closest maybe roster turnover or like the most? I mean, it's probably less than 20, right, throughout your career?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we had a couple guys transfer in from some smaller colleges. I think we had one guy from LSU come over, play the end for us. But I think maybe at maximum, maybe 5 or 6 any given season. I don't think we had very many at all that transferred in from us. So, yeah, I mean, it's certainly not what it used to be back in the day. I know back in the day, when you got with a team, you kind of stayed with them for better or for worse. Now this portal is open up, which I'm all for it. I have always been a proponent of, go where, you feel best fit. And Dom, you and I have talked about this a number of times. I think there should be some restrictions on how often you get to do it. However, I do feel like players deserve it just as much as coaches do, and really anybody in the sport. So, but yeah, to answer your question, there has not been, or was not back when I played 20 years ago. Jeez. That much turnover.
If he was a tree, he would have many, many rings, as they say.
To say the least. Man. I've got a few rings.
Yeah, you do. You definitely have a few rings. Dusty, what about a specific player, or maybe just a small handful of specific players that you think are going to come in here and add the leadership and the culture building that's going to be necessary to get ULM and the Warhawks back on the right path to where they want to be?
Yeah, I think the leader really is on the offensive line. Elijah Fisher, he was the representative for the offensive side at Sunbelt Media Days. He's a guy that's coming back. He's a junior this year. He's been the real vocal, outspoken proponent of how this team has really got to right the ship. Last year, Louisiana Lafayette, he was there on the sidelines, tears flowing down his face and just pissed that it was a non-competitive team and just not really able to get the job done. It's definitely not seeing the fruits of your labor. And then you have guys around you that are just kind of acting like a bunch of jackasses and not really appreciating the hard work that everybody's put in to get to that point. So I think he's the leadership that really is going to anchor not only that offensive line, but the offense as a whole. More importantly, though, it really starts with your general in the backfield. And you can take that for what it's worth of General Booty and insert your whole joke line there. But there's no guarantee that it's even Booty that is your starting quarterback this year. I think it probably is, but there's a lot of guys that are in that quarterback room that are really stepping up to the plate and going to make a name for themselves. The guy I like the most, Aiden Armenta, he was at New Mexico. He knows Bryant Vincent's offense. He knows what's expected. He knows what it's going to take to get that offense to really thrive under Bryant Vincent.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was really impressed with Fisher when he was there. He's also a massive human being. So that doesn't hurt when you are looking for someone to protect the quarterback, the multiple quarterbacks that you've brought in. We've had Mooney on this show as well. So yeah, a plethora of guys. Again, here's that word again, plethora. I don't use it, and all of a sudden I'm using it, 2 or 3 times in one night. But you've got a number of different weapons. But I stuck my neck out there and I said, if I haven't heard General Booty's been named the starter yet, I'm going to throw a wrench in the plans and say Hunter Herring stands a good chance. I threw that prediction out there, I think just yesterday. I'm kind of leaning towards you. I would have assumed a couple months ago, especially right when he transferred in, that it was going to be him. But the fact he hasn't been named just yet, either they really want to keep it close, or like you said, it's maybe pretty close. I don't know if you have any further details you want or can share on that. But yeah, like maybe a time or day when they think they're going to make this announcement or anything.
Probably Thursday night of next week when they're getting ready to line up against Jackson State. Because I think that's one of the big advantages they have right now is like I said, with 74 new players, no one really knows exactly what you have. You can watch film and say, okay, this guy played this way when he was at Oklahoma or UAB or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily translate to how they're going to be used and how they're going to play when they're at ULM. So really the unknown is one of the key factors. And so I think if you're looking at the score bug, looking at the box score for next Thursday's game against Jackson State, you might go, ULM squeak by Jackson State. They're going to do enough to win the game, but still continue holding those cards close to their vest and trying to get ready for that UAB game. Because I think we in the Sun Belt would definitely much rather have that game, that win over the American Conference, than just another swagtastic win.
No doubt about it. I'm going to ask you an interesting question. I didn't realize how close those two schools were to start the season. So I think that'll be kind of a fun atmosphere, because I believe there'll probably be a good amount of fans from both sides there for that one. But before we get into that, 74 new players. Like I said, TJ's never experienced that kind of a roster turnover. So what do you expect? What do the fans expect out of this team? I pointed out in media days, and obviously they know this, but their roster consists of about 15 guys from the local area there in Monroe or West Monroe specifically. Is that going to bode well and kind of get this team to play for their city literally for most of these guys, and maybe pass along to their other teammates as they learn the culture and the tradition and everything else that comes with having a brand new coach as well?
Look, ULM was founded 1931. They've had athletics from day one, been D1 since 94. I think this year, 2024, is really the first year that they've had a true program. And so I think that a lot of people are tired of the way it's been and are finally actually buying into it to build the program. Does that translate into a 12-0 season this year? Probably not. They're probably a 4 or 5 win team. Maybe they can sneak up and get the 6 wins, which would be fantastic. But it's going to take a little bit of time. Now, how much time is that? I think probably if it's not this year, it's next year. But it doesn't do you any favors when you kind of peek down the road and you see that next year your non-conference is only Alabama and Northwestern. Not Northwestern State, by the way, the Northwestern in Chicago. So it doesn't get any easier. But I think that we've actually seen the community start buying in. I think that we're seeing the players buying into the program. Everyone's excited, at least coming into the season. I don't know if you really get a good feel for it, A, because it's a Thursday night game, and B, because you're playing an FCS opponent. But I think that the excitement is there, and I think that we'll really see how well this community is jumping back on board in week 2 against UAB.
Yeah, I do 100% agree with that, because we've known for a little while ULM's been down, and I haven't seen them be real active on the social accounts and posting as much as they seem to be doing now. And like you said, there seems to certainly be a renewed sense of excitement. They brought out that helmet in like the perfect timing. I'm sure that was a part of why they wanted to do it, was bring it out right there at the media day and have it sitting there on the desk, which is one of the coolest, if not the coolest helmet in all of college football.
And new uniforms coming this week.
So I saw that. I was going to ask you about that, because that seemed like they didn't make it completely obvious, but they did tease that there is something else along the way. So that's going to be, I'm excited for that, because I already like that uniform. I think it's one of the best and one of the coolest ones down there. And is there a lot of like military in the area of Monroe? Is that part of why that uniform exists?
So the reason behind the Warhawk name is they wanted something unique to the community. Back in World War II, we all know what the P-40 is, the good old Warhawk.
Nice.
Was led by General Chenault, who was actually from Monroe and did trainings there in Monroe. It's Chenault International Airport is the airport there. So it really kind of ties the significant part of history that, we wouldn't be where we were today without the Warhawks. And so now we're bringing back the history.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. And as a military family member, I never served or anything. My dad was a Marine, but I know he thinks it's one of the cooler logos and helmets in all of football. So lots of people out there, not even attached to the ULM program, at least know that. And hopefully, again, that can build upon what we're looking at here. And speaking of what we're looking at here, now we've got the schedule up in front of us. So we've got, like you said, Jackson State Thursday night. Essentially, it's not national TV. It's an ESPN Plus game, but pretty easy to find for all the conference members.
That's worldwide. That's worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We're all used to it. This is not new to the Sun Belt. Then you got that regional matchup with UAB the following Saturday, followed by, just a trip over to Texas on the 21st. And then your last out-of-conference game isn't the fourth game in the season. It's going to be deep down how the SEC likes to do it for whatever reason. And then you travel November 16th to Auburn. So which one are you looking forward to the most? And maybe does that align with the fan base as well? Or do you think there might be two different answers there?
I think there's a lot of different answers there. I mean, I'll give you the coach answer of looking forward to Jackson State because it's the next game up there. But in all seriousness, that is the one I'm kind of looking forward to kind of kick it off, see this team kind of go through the live motions and really see and get a glimpse maybe of what this season kind of holds for us. But I still have heavily circled that UAB game in week 2. I feel like the animosity, I won't go as far as hatred that, Bryant Vincent should have been named the head coach when he was there. Obviously glad that he wasn't because he was able to come to ULM. But he definitely has the receipts. He has the memories of it. He wants to ensure that game is a victory for the Warhawks. How great would it be that you're going into the bye week right before Texas, sitting at 2-0, to go to a Texas team that very well could be 1-1, 0-2 when they're playing?
Yep.
That sounds like a great game for me.
Yeah. And definitely one. I think you guys recently matched up with Texas as well, too. Wasn't it just 2 or 3 years ago that you had a game with Texas?
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. 2 plays away from at least covered. I'm not going to, even imply, they were 1 play away from winning. No, they were about 2 plays away from covering, including a blocked punt for a touchdown. But this was a true freshman kid that in a panic, a coach grabbed him and said, go. In true fashion of, 4th down of his collegiate career, 100,000 fans cheering, he forgot that he was supposed to hit the guy right in front of him. And so that guy went by him, he waved to him, and the rest was history.
Yeah. Always a little tough there. Always a little tough. TJ, do you have any questions left? Do you have any thoughts about them going up against Auburn deep into the season like they have?
Yeah, so in my experience, right, so we did this back in 2006, 2005, I think. We played LSU towards the end of our season. And it was kind of when we were finding out who we really were, right? Like we were, ended up being very good. I know the 2004 season for App State wasn't super great. But then, we got on track in 05 and really started to kind of come into our own and figure out what kind of team we were. Does it do your team, in your opinion, a service or a disservice playing a P5 school, or I guess P4 now, that late in the season? And what do you think the outcome? Well, I don't want to say the outcome because obviously you don't want to predict things, but what do you think it will mean for your team, depending on record-wise where you guys are, and how will that fit for you guys in that schedule? Because it is tough, right? It's tough playing a team, that late into the season that's that strong, and so it kind of, the measuring stick kind of is out of the window because you know who you are in November. But what does that mean for your team, and what kind of show do you think they can put on?
I say this only because here's my shameless plug there, Dominic. In our most recent episode of Funbelt Podcast, we talked with Ryan Nani there of, I don't even know where he writes for now. It was SB Nation. I think they went kaput. So he's now doing some independent stuff. But it still came up, the 2007 win against Alabama. And I'm circling back to your question there, TJ.
Mm-hmm.
That game was the second to last game of the season. And it still was kind of a motivator that, hey, we're sitting at 4 wins. We can still get to 5. We can still get to 6. And so I think late in the season, that gives ULM a chance that if they're in contention, maybe they're sitting at 5 wins, and that could be 6 for their second ever bowl berth. I think it really depends on what's happened up to that point. Really determines how good, bad, or indifferent that game can be. And here's the good and the bad for Auburn. They'll be coming in off of a bye week after playing Vandy, bye week, then ULM. Then they close out the next 2 weeks after that with Texas A&M and Alabama. How much is Auburn going to have to play up or bring their A game in that game against ULM?
Right.
Yo, absolutely. No doubt about it. I feel like this is one of those scenarios where, like you said, you got 74 new players, guys and teammates that need to learn each other as well as the system, as well as how the coach does responding to certain things throughout the game and the season. It's one of those ones where it might be a little rough in the beginning and then might be rolling into form towards the end. And that's why this one's interesting to me, that Auburn matchup being late like that. Auburn hasn't been the power that they used to be. Obviously, what they lose to, was it New Mexico State just last year at home?
The fighting Jerry Kills.
Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, they're not invincible. They really haven't been in a while, but this may be the time to take advantage as hopefully the Warhawks round into form towards the latter part of this season. Dusty, we are already a little behind. That's no fault of your own. That's trying to get everything rolling here. And it was a great talk because I haven't felt this much excitement about the Warhawks since we've been doing this whole thing. And I know that excites you to hear that and what the promise of this season could bring as far as your team is concerned. But before you get out of here, please tell the people where they can find you and your show, and certainly listen along to these guys as the season rolls along.
For sure. I am on Warhawk_report on the X, as well as warhawkreport.com. And then the Funbelt podcast available everywhere you can get podcasts, and then Funbelt PC on the X. Give us a follow. We try not to discriminate, although I feel like the East schools shame us, saying we don't give them enough coverage, that we're a West-only type of platform. But we do try to get in with everybody, pick on everybody. We love us some Viva La Boobcats. We love the Let's Get Weird Old Dominion Monarchs, and everyone in between.
Very nice. Gotta respect it. Well, Dusty, we really appreciate your time tonight and the insight on the Warhawks. We'll definitely be tuned in on Thursday next week to figure out what we can see from your Warhawks this season.
Sounds great. Thank y'all.
Thanks, man.
First good one started. It's so weird for those that are just listening to the audio version of this later. It's just me on screen right now. It feels weird. TJ's here. It's like you're a ghost, man. You're in the shadows rolling along here. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just weird because we haven't yet done this where I'm the only one on screen and you're just on the audio only version. But
yeah, well, I figured this was better than not being there at all, right? And I don't know, maybe we run into some dead areas and some choppy sound bites, but we'll do it how we can do it. And I appreciate you guys for bearing with me while I try to get myself back to Wake Forest.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And be safe doing so. Again, you drop out or whatever, we'll deal with it and we'll get you back on. You've got the link. You can click back in when it's safe to do so. We are excited to get into the next team as we preview Arkansas State with the one and only Kara Richey. I know that she blew us away with everything she had to say last time and her knowledge base of not only Arkansas State, but the rest of this conference, guys. I heard her long ago. Shout out to the Black and Gold podcast. That's where I first got introduced to Kara. And I was like, immediately, like, this woman knows everything. She knows everything. So excited to have Kara back on the show tonight to talk what is yet again another exciting team to come out of the West in Arkansas State.
I certainly think so. This team returns a lot of talent, specifically, on offense. Just so many familiar faces on that side of the ball, and just enough key returners on defense that gives you confidence that unit can take another step forward, but also enough questions that you do have things to talk about prior to the season, because there's going to have to be some playmakers on that side of the ball emerge. And right now we're not 100% sure who they're going to be yet. So fun time of year for sure. 10 days until kickoff.
No doubt about it. And one of the most exciting players on your team, I'm going to jump the gun a little bit here as far as additions, because he's not an addition or a portal transfer of any sort, but your quarterback, Rainer is from the state of North Carolina, where TJ and I reside, and I know it was kind of cool to get to talk to him real quick. TJ and I aren't really right down the road from where he's from and where he played high school ball, but we're not too far either. And it was nice to kind of meet up with him at Sunbelt Media Days. But talk about maybe some of the weapons that he may have been able to add to his arsenal in the offseason that we may not be as familiar with.
To be honest, most of the key guys on that side of the ball are guys that were here last year. Because you look and especially at, with the run game, you already had a three-headed monster there, all in-state guys with Zach Wallace and Jaquez Cross, and also Cedric Hawkins emerging late in the year as a true freshman. So those are familiar names. They do have a running back, a true freshman in that room by the name of Devin Spencer that get your attention a little bit. So A-State is going to be able to establish the run this year for sure, and then that should open up the passing game. And the top two targets there are familiar guys. Courtney Jackson is just that steady, consistent guy. He transferred from Syracuse ahead of last year, and then led the team in touchdowns. Please. Oh, no, there's a squirrel outside. Sorry. Anyways, apologies for my dog in the background. But Courtney Jackson was great last year. Corey Rucker last year, of course, was also phenomenal. He transferred back from South Carolina after playing the first 2 years at A-State, and those are going to be the primary two targets there in the wide receiver room. They did lose Jeff Foreman to graduation, so there will need to be some other guys emerge as well. And I think there's some interesting names there for sure. Malik Hornsby is one that got everybody's attention when he transferred from Texas State to Arkansas State, but he did not transfer in as a quarterback, which is what he's played throughout his career, even prior to Texas State at Arkansas. So he's going to be in the wide receiver room now. This spring for Hornsby, it kind of felt like when a ball came his way and it was in the air, you're like, all right, is he going to catch it? Is he not going to catch it? He's looked very steady this fall. And I think that he just seems to be a lot more confident in that position. So that's very promising there at wide receiver. There's also, a transfer from Tulane by the name of Hunter Summers that could potentially get some reps there. Reggie Harden is probably the tallest guy. He's that guy that you could put in the back of the end zone and find. Transfer from D2 Benedict College, I think. So there are a couple new names, but then, again, several familiar faces at running back, at wide receiver, and the top two tight ends that return were at A-State last year as well. So some new, some same old, same old.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I'm telling you, she didn't look at a single note when she rattled all that off, guys, by the way. I think I mentioned this in the past, but absolutely phenomenal information right off the top of the head for Kara there. As far as that goes, then, with all those guys surrounding what's now thought to be one of the best quarterbacks in this conference, maybe in the region, as he won the Peyton Passing Academy College Quarterback of the Camp, I guess. I don't know if that's the official title. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but a lot of excitement for him. Where does that put the excitement for maybe you specifically and or the fan base for A-State this season?
I think there's several reasons for excitement, but this is year 4 of Butch Jones being at the helm of A-State. So, every year it's very fair for expectations to grow. Year 1 was not great. Year 2 was not great. Year 3 ended with a bowl trip. It was a bowl loss. So you want to end the season with a win, of course. But I think there are expectations that this team, if not necessarily I don't think the fans automatically say, all right, this team has to be in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game for it to be a success. But I know for me personally, I want to see this team still in the running for a West Division title in week 12, the final week of the season. So, you've got year 4 of the Butch Jones era. You've got all of these returners on offense. You've got just enough guys on defense that can play well with some exciting newcomers on that side of the ball. You've got a West that is really interesting this year in the Sun Belt. Some of the teams Troy specifically, that was so good last year, is rebuilding a little bit after they lost a boatload of starters and, of course, their head coach. So just all of these different things are kind of trending towards this potentially being a really fun and exciting season.
Yeah. One thing that stuck out to me from Sunbelt Media Days, and I know that you were in the other room because you guys were completely booked up. I had to go find her one day to finally meet her.
And I'm sorry, it was a super brief conversation. At that point in time, I was starting to fade a little bit. And I was just trying to do the math. It's like, all right, I got 2 more hours on air. I've done 30 interviews at this point in time. Like, I was just trying to power through. So I apologize for literally being like, Dominick, okay, all right, cool, bye. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. It is literally comes with the territory, and I was learning my way around my first iteration of that. So no offense taken. I'm glad we at least got to meet and shake hands real quick. But while I was outside of that room, I did get to hear Butch Jones talk about what was a quality that maybe some people wouldn't have really associated with a good thing when it first happened. Obviously, the first game of last season did not go well, but he actually brought that up at media days on the podium and mentioned how another coach called him and asked him kind of what was going on and what he was feeling. And he had described that his team had called a team-only meeting and hit the weight room and started clanging and banging after a loss like that. And that coach told him on the phone that night, congratulations, you've just won. Yeah. And he said, what do you mean by that? And he said, that's culture right there. And it just built itself from what you just went through. And so when you hear those types of things, that's what helps maybe get these guys going in the right direction with already an exciting roster full of a lot of talent, which I do have a question about Malik Hornsby specifically as well. But you've got a roster full of a lot of talent, the defense coming along, and it just makes sense why there's a lot of excitement about the Red Wolves getting back up to the top of this conference where they were for so long, really, before a short little fall off here. So my question for Malik Hornsby that I think TJ will be able to talk about a little bit here too, being a former quarterback who but was recruited in a different position as well. So he's a quarterback. He's going to be transitioning to a wide receiver. Are we going to see a number of trick plays or at least some sets where they have the possibility of having him throw a pass out of the backfield? I know that's a trade secrets in a sense, but what are your feelings on that possibility coming to fruition on this field this year?
I mean, it's a possibility for sure. I mean, he was a quarterback for a long time. He was a good one. So if you have an additional weapon there to make your your offense harder to defend, why in the world would you not try and work him in the mix at some point in time? He actually took a lot. Hornsby, one of the reasons maybe why his spring at wide receiver wasn't necessarily really, really attention grabbing is because A-State had zero depth at quarterback this spring. So Hornsby was here in the spring and was working out at wide receiver. However, you had like 2 dudes in that quarterback room and one of them was hurt some. So he ended up actually taking a lot of snaps at quarterback this spring. So he does know this offense from, in and out from a quarterback perspective. So will we see him throw a couple passes at some point in time this year? Absolutely. Do I know when that will be or what situation or anything like that? I do not. But I would put money on Malik Hornsby throwing not a lot because Rayner's great, but a handful of passes throughout the 24 season.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think even if you did know when that was coming, that would be kind of a sworn to secrecy type of information that you wouldn't release anyways, to catch some of these teams by surprise. And speaking of those teams, we've now got the out-of-conference slate up on screen. It seems like you guys play Central Arkansas like almost every year. Talk about that matchup being just really close and really easy to formulate, but what it means maybe to A-State. I mean, obviously you kind of can't lose that one for multiple reasons, but maybe what that allows them to do with one that still has some intensity behind it for a kind of lower division matchup before they get their season started with Tulsa and then Michigan and then Iowa State, who I believe is bringing back the most production in all of college football this season.
Iowa State also has a bye week before they face the Red Wolves, but we'll work our way to that one in a moment. So that game does not maybe set up great from a scheduling perspective. UCA has been on the schedule a ton. I'm trying to remember if the last meeting, I know they at least played in the COVID year. I'm trying to remember if that was the last one or not. The one that sticks out to the fan base, UCA actually beat A-State in Jonesboro in 2016. And so it's not exactly, it's because of that, it is a game that is impossible to overlook. Even if A-State returned every single player on the 2 deep, even if A-State was coming off an undefeated season, even if the Bears were 0 for last year and had a new coach or something like that, you cannot overlook that game. And of course, neither one of those situations apply. And the Bears are good. They were ranked, I think, 11th in the FCS poll when that came out. So this is not going to be a pushover team, which I think is good. You don't necessarily want somebody in week one that you're going to go out and beat the brakes off of 63-0. It is nice to have a little bit of a challenge. They do have some guys that are going to do that. I think they have a player, and I don't remember his name, but that was on like Bruce Feldman's preseason freaks list or something like that. So they have some talent. I know they've got a very good running back that is out of the Northeast Arkansas area, Powell, and when he transferred ahead of transferring to UCA, he was actually on the A-State radar, and A-State instead ended up getting some other guys instead. But they've got some guys. You can't look over that game. It would just completely derail any and all expectations after 1 week. So I think this team is going to be focused. I don't think that's going to happen, but I expect a fun battle in week one.
Nice. Is there a thought process of what the bigger shot and opportunity is for them? You know, going to Michigan and facing just last year's national champions, whether they get the trophy taken away or not, for all the repercussions that might be heading their way, we'll see. But is it kind of like, let's get the shot at these guys who are kind of at the top of the college football world, or do they not necessarily the players, but maybe the fan base, they like that shot at Iowa State, who, you know, coming in maybe seems like a more realistic win, or however you want to phrase that?
I will phrase it by saying that I like next year's non-conference schedule much better, because next year Arkansas State will play Arkansas in Little Rock. They will host Iowa State. So you've got a different group of Power 5 opponents there, or at least different situations with those groups. This isn't anything new to A-State. This isn't anything new to Sunbelt teams. You know, you have everybody's schedule is a little bit different, but for a while, the A-State theory was kind of, all right, if you're going to go out and have to play a money game, if you're going to have to go out and play like a big brand opponent, go out and get the one that's going to get you the best check. So if you look back over the past decade, you've got Michigan, you've got Ohio State, you've got Alabama, you've got Georgia, you've got Auburn. So it is what it is with this game, is kind of what it is. I mean, you'd love for A-State to go out and be able to be competitive throughout the entire game, but you'd love even more for everybody to just come back home healthy.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me, especially when, as we all know, with divisions still being a part of this conference, the only one left with divisions, you can drop those games, and really, in the end, as far as your conference stuff is concerned, it does not matter. You can afford to drop those and still finish at the top of your conference, and that's what's going to get you to the conference championship game. And, you know, who knows? Maybe someday we're looking CFP, maybe this season, as soon as this season. I know I'm sure you've seen it too, some predictions that have either App State or Texas State as the early predicted ones to end up there. What's maybe the ceiling for this team?
I mean, the ceiling is pretty high, I think, because I look at, and again, rosters change so much from year to year, yes. But I look at how A-State played at the back end of the year when the Red Wolves were healthy. I look at those huge wins over Texas State and Louisiana, and is that repeatable? I think so. Maybe not, 77 to whatever the score was against Texas State.
That might be tough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be tough, because that game was bonkers. But those are things that can be repeated. This is a solid roster. So, I mean, the ceiling is a Sunbelt Conference championship. That absolutely is attainable. A double-digit win is attainable. In my opinion. You just got to answer a couple of questions early in the season on defense and see what happens after that.
Absolutely. I haven't finalized all my stuff, but my early outlook is having the Arkansas State Red Wolves right at the top and possibly right underneath Texas State. I just can't stop thinking about what Texas State has on their roster coming into this season. But I feel like Arkansas State is like just a step behind as far as like the top to bottom excitement that could be on the horizon for both of these teams. So
forget the roster for Texas State. They've got a great schedule. I don't know how you would not be elated right now if you were a Bobcats fan. You get to spend the first month in the month of Texas. You get to host Arizona State. You have all of those opportunities early in the season to really build momentum. And then, in my opinion, in the West, I think the top three teams will be Texas State, Louisiana, and Arkansas State. And Texas State hosts the Cajuns and the Red Wolves. So on paper, I get why a lot of people are rolling with Texas State. That is a lovely schedule.
Yes, it really is. I was shocked when I'm like, this isn't right. All 4 of their first 4 games are at home, which is not technically true. That Sam Houston State is in NRG Stadium in Houston,
Right.
but essentially a home game. And like you say, you still don't leave the state of Texas or do anything more than take a bus ride. So I don't know how they lined it up either, but phenomenal for them. And like you said, a reason for a lot of excitement there. And I know you and the Red Wolf fans are excited to make that not so easy for them. So good luck as far as that's concerned. We really appreciate you jumping on tonight, Kara. And certainly before you go, tell the people where they can find you and follow along with your information and specifics about the Red Wolves for the rest of the year.
Sure. On social media, I spend entirely too much time on Twitter. I'm at Kara_Richey. So very easy to find there. Radio wise, I am all over the place. Daily, Monday through Friday, noon to 2 Central, on the Workday Red Zone, which is on 95.3 The Ticket. You can find it at 953theticket.com. Game day, I open up the network broadcast, the pregame for Arkansas State football. Easiest way to find that there is just make sure you have the Varsity app, so that way you can follow along with all the Sun Belt games and just look for A-State. And I get going 2 hours before kickoff. So very excited to do that 10 days from now.
Nice. Awesome. We are excited as well, right, TJ?
Yes, sir. Kara, you are a absolute breath of fresh air from all these Neanderthals that we have, including ourselves, that we have on this show. It is nice to hear and see a pretty face, although I can't see you that much because I got to pay attention to driving. But no, it's awesome to have you on here. You are a wealth of knowledge. I bet you didn't know that. I bet you didn't think I was going to throw that word in there, Dominic.
Somebody's got to bring the train, so it's all right.
It ain't us, I'll tell you that.
Thank you so
much. Right, guys, appreciate the invite as always. Thank you so much.
Yep. See ya. Oh, man. That was good. I like when you rag on us for our brains, though, TJ.
She is great. She's awesome.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, like, it's phenomenal. I mean, I could tell when the first time I heard her talk on like I said, the Black and Gold podcast for App State, they were previewing the game against Arkansas State. I'm like, there's no way this woman's reading notes, because it was just so fast. Like, there's no way you can find that out. So, yeah, phenomenal job. There's a reason why she's well respected and thought of in this Sun Belt Conference, and probably even regionally as well. Again, as she's been on the radio, she talks more than just the Sun Belt and A-State. She talks sports overall. She always throws out a question of the day type of thing for her radio coverage as well. So keep an eye out for her, and certainly shoot her a follow if you're not already doing so. Moving on to our next show, TJ. We've got Jag Nation Radio joining us, a team of Preston, Davis, Brennan, and Sean. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hey, fellas, how are y'all?
Good,
man.
Game's all here. How you guys doing?
I'm all right. We're real busy with school.
Yeah, I bet. Are you guys all the same year? Or are you guys across the spectrum as far as years in school?
He's a senior, and we're both juniors.
Okay, so you're pretty close then.
Yeah.
Are you all roommates? Is this the spot? Is this the hangout spot?
No, this is my house, and then they live other places.
Yeah, I got a private room, so
they just come hang out.
Yeah.
You're where it goes down at, huh?
What was that?
I said you're where it goes down at, huh? Party Central.
Oh yeah.
Very nice. I like the backdrop there, fellas. So we know there's again more excitement coming in for South Alabama, but there's also the knowledge that the defense, as strong as it was supposed to be last year, wasn't quite maybe where you guys wanted or thought it would be. And obviously you've lost a lot of that talent is there as well, but there's excitement on the offense part of the ball, especially with Gio Lopez as quarterback, or I guess, is he officially named that he's been officially named?
He was officially named, I think, as of yesterday.
Within the last 2 days.
Nice. Which was like the worst kept secret out there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But so he's going to lead the way. What other weapons have been brought in to help him, or what players do you think are going to stand out and help him on the offensive side? And obviously anybody you also thinking of defensively for this season as well?
I think in terms of new guys, you could look at tight end Andrew Bench. But I think just in terms of people who are going to have a big impact this year, it's Jamal Pritchett, Devin Boyson, and for running back. So Braylon McReynolds, PJ Martin, Kentrell Bullock, those kind of guys.
Got it. Very nice. Anybody else got thoughts on that one?
I would say, you could also look at the returning tight end, DJ Thomas-Jones.
Yep.
He'll have another big season. Last year, especially toward the back half, he really picked it up, and so we're expecting to see the same. As for the defense, I think we're going to look,
That's where it's really loaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, with transfers.
Yeah. Big names like Akil Washington from Liberty. He's a big one.
Courtney
McBride.
Darius McKenzie from Maine.
We have like you could say he's kind of homegrown because he's returning again. Blaine Myrick. He's really not well known, but he will be once the season starts. He's a linebacker. I mean, this guy comes off the ball, and I mean, he kills dudes literally. I mean, he hits people hard. And is it Jaden? I always forget Jaden. Jaden's on the defense. They look the same. They're twins.
They don't.
Yes, they do. Jaden voicing the safety, obviously. He'll probably be one of, if not our best defensive player.
He could easily be first team Sun Belt. Easily.
And then, of course, we can't forget Bubba Watson. My God.
Bubba
Thomas. It's late. I'm sorry.
Bubba Watson did win a Masters. He was pretty good.
It's late.
Yeah, you must be golf fans too.
Bubba Thomas.
Yeah,
We're all tired.
It's all good, guys. It's all good. We like to have fun on this show too. So, and
We haven't dealt with classes since May, and it's we're only 2 days in, but I'm already done with them. But
we're very nice.
We're surviving.
Trying to.
Off the
There
show.
you go. There you go. So from the sounds of it, you've got two potentially big or star tight ends. We think you're going to see a lot of double tight end sets to help Gio out here, at least the early part of the season. Maybe get him some easy yardage or some extra protection in the box there.
Yeah, I mean, a staple of Major Applewhite's offense is having two tight ends out there. So
Trent Thomas is one guy from Cottage Hill. He's a redshirt freshman. He's a guy that's really been impressive. Andrew Bench, like we mentioned, and DJ Thomas-Jones. But I did hear Trent Thomas is probably going to be the second guy out there. I believe he's been getting quite a few reps. So either him or Andrew Bench will be the second guy. Either way, I think tight end should be big for us this year. And
To be honest, though, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a lot of 4 wide receivers on the field because we have a lot of guys that can play receiver that are all really good or pretty good. So
a lot of 4-4 speed kind of thing on the field.
Yeah, and I think that'll probably be speed is probably what's going to be the name of the game for the offense this year. Is how quick can they go?
Really experienced as well. Jamal Pritchett, Devin Boyson, Jeremiah Webb, John Ivory.
Yeah.
So a lot of experience in the wide receiver room as well.
Nice. So having said all that with the players specifically, it seems like you guys are pretty confident going into this year. Where does that put you guys in the standings? What are your guys' and maybe your fellow students' expectations going into this season?
Well, I will say there's confidence. Like we have confidence in our out-of-conference schedule. I can say that. But the Sun Belt's loaded, and there are going to be some games that, obviously you don't want to drop any game, but realistically there are going to be some that we drop just because there are some in-conference teams that are just better. Texas State, Arkansas State, that kind of thing. I have confidence that we'll make a bowl game, but you also need to manage the expectations for a first year it's Coach Applewhite's first year as a head coach. Here at least.
We have a redshirt freshman quarterback. Had some problems on the offensive line. We had 2 guys medically retire in the past week. So there's still those concerns that, kind of hold me back from guaranteeing that we're going to get like a never 10-win season. But I think it's best way I can put it is cautiously optimistic. Mm-hmm. And I think the general consensus, at least between us, is 6-6, 7-5, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe 8-4 if everything goes.
8-4, yeah, if everything goes.
You also got to remember that Major Applewhite's a guy that's he's not like a relatively new hire. He's been around since Kane Womack hired him in 2021. So
and he has experience as
he's a guy that the players like, and like you said, experience as a head coach before, which is really comforting as well. So that's something that also needs to be kept in mind as well. So
I think the team only gets better with how much experience they get.
Mm-hmm.
And so while they may not be, amazing, they're not going to be, fantastic this season. Next season, they'll be even better. And the season after that, they'll be even better. So, it's kind of we don't
constantly building.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that the major recruiting ground that Mobile, Alabama, and the surrounding area is going to be a major focus as well, because you guys have a lot of talent in that area that actually ends up leaving the area. I know he's going to be focusing on keeping that talent more local there, and obviously winning helps that the easiest of anything. And like you guys said, this out-of-conference slate does not look terribly daunting. Obviously, you've got that look at LSU. I would assume that that's the one you guys kind of look forward to the most. But talk about maybe a little specifics about this schedule as it lays out. You start out at home at the very least before you go on the road to what I think is a very winnable game there against Ohio. So just talk about what you guys think as far as the early season portion goes.
Well, the thing I've been telling these guys is a 3-0 start is something that needs to happen. A 3-0 start will dictate how the rest of the season goes. But we need to come out of those first 3 games with 3 wins. And I think they're all manageable. North Texas is a tough team, but I think that they are kind of overrated just because they're an American Athletic Conference team. Ohio, they lost a lot of talent, so that's a very winnable game. And then Northwestern State has had probably the worst past year of any college program, including Notre Dame College in Ohio, which quite literally shut down. So it's – again, you have to start out 3-0. The LSU game, LSU is a very strong SEC team.
To say
you got to keep expectations realistic.
We're not expecting an Oklahoma State situation again.
Yeah,
it'd be great if it happens.
A 2017 Troy situation would be nice. Though,
yeah,
but,
I think we'll make LSU sweat. I think we'll make them, kind of go into halftime a little bit like, whoa. We weren't expecting this, but
Brian Kelly did have some good things to say about the team as well at SEC Media Days, which was really surprising because they asked him about us. So,
and I really think the first game will dictate. And I hate to say this because you never want your first game to dictate how your season goes, but to be honest, I think this first game will dictate how our season goes.
Yeah.
If we come out and play well, our season will likely be well. If we come out and play flat, our season will probably be flat. I mean, it's just the way North Texas is. They're not a crazy – I'm from the Dallas area, so I know all about North Texas. And they're not – they haven't been, always the greatest team, but they can put some pretty competitive teams on the field. And so, like this year, they do. And especially being quarterbacked by Chandler Morris, he's not a sweat. He's not a lightweight. This guy is he's a talented quarterback who's played at the the Power 4 level. Yeah. So, he has experience.
And the other thing I'll say is, with these first few games, the number one thing I need to see is consistency. We lost games last year because we weren't consistent. And our previous head coach loved to state, how we need to establish consistency. And it's like, I wonder whose job that is.
We're not saying much. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, we had some inexcusable losses last year, and we need to change that. Central Michigan was an inexcusable loss. I think that Tulane was an understandable loss, but it's the kind of loss where it was way worse than it had to be. So we're going to need to have some philosophy changes. We can't lose games that we should by all means win. And I think, a good example of that's going to be the Ohio game. By all means, we should win that game. They lost a lot of talent. We have just an overall better roster. Yes, it is on the road, but again, it's a very winnable game. I need to see us play to our full potential. And we did that sometimes last year. We did it against Oklahoma State. That was pretty cool. We did it against Marshall. But we didn't do it in far too many games. We went 7-6 with a probably 10-2 roster.
Yeah.
So we need to get that consistency established. And I trust Major Applewhite more to do that.
Makes a lot of sense to me. TJ, you got any questions for these guys too?
Yeah, I going off your non-conference schedule, I know you guys talked about, who's winnable, who's not winnable. I guess given your, best judgment of where the team finished last year and where you guys are headed this year, what game, I guess, would you say would be the most winnable out of the 4 non-conference schedule? And then how does that set up you guys for the rest of the year?
I would say the obvious answer has to be Northwestern State because that's an FCS school. That's on a Thursday night, the Thursday before App State. Because for some reason this year we don't play our 4 non-con straight, which we've never done. So
I think this is a game where the backups could easily be in here by the third quarter.
Yeah, and that's what we need because we need to have the starters rest
before we come face y'all up there in Boone.
That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
We need to get the starters out of there by the second half.
We should be able to put up maybe more than 50 in that game.
I would like to see that's the kind of game where we need to see Jacob Jones in.
Yeah.
Nice.
That makes sense. So let's put this out there. So you have exactly a week from that game until you play App State. Are you thinking you can spring the upset? Because App State doesn't have that week-long break. They have a short turnaround before they face you in the first conference game of the season there for both teams, obviously, with it being that early. But they've got like that 5-day turnaround. Is it a thought process that's going to play to your guys' advantage as you come up the mountain to Boone?
So I didn't actually know that. That's a good point. And I think that because I was kind of thinking, I think if we're going to beat any tough team this year, it's going to be App State or Troy. And I'm not saying Troy is a tough team this year. They've lost a lot of talent. And I do think that we should, if we don't beat Troy this year, we probably never will. All right. Like this is the year that we need to beat them finally. But I do think that, that extra rest will have an advantage. Now granted, we are the traveling team and we got to get used to all the things that happens when you go to the East Coast. Mm-hmm. But, like I said, if we're going to beat any tough team this year, I figured it'd be App State. I'm confident in App State, but I'm not riding the train like everyone else is.
Yeah, and I agree with him.
You should be riding the train.
We'll see.
The thing that's creeping into my mind is the last time we traveled to App State back in 2021, I believe that was a 31-7 loss. To be fair, completely different team, but Boone's not an easy place to play. That stadium will be packed out.
It's sold out. It is sold out.
It's that really is going to be Gio's first experience in like a truly loud environment because Troy for a Battle of Belt last year was not that loud. So we got to see how he'll respond. I think that there's certainly a chance that we can win this game. I personally am not like Preston. I'm not nearly as high on App State as other people are. I still think they win the East, but to me, it's not a guaranteed win by any stretch. But it's a game that if things go right for us, we can win for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. I think it's realistic, to be honest with you, and the reason is, like you said, different team, but the score was not indicative of how close that game felt to me. Being there for that last one when you guys came up the mountain, I was like concerned, like this is not going the way it should in the beginning of this game. And obviously they opened it up towards the end, and it seems worse than it felt. I will tell you that. So I will be honest and tell you that, yeah, a little different play early part of the year or early part of that game, and you got a whole different story where you're looking for a last-second field goal or touchdown to win that thing because nobody could. It didn't seem like either team could get out of their own way essentially at the beginning of that one. So yeah, I think we're looking at a team that's definitely got a shot to surprise some people. And like you said, this out-of-conference slate should be one that you can take advantage of and at least get close to a bowl game right after all that's done and roll into conference and just have to win a couple games to get to, postseason play. But obviously, I'm sure you guys want to meet and exceed that expectation. Fellas, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Definitely tell everybody where they can find you guys and follow South Alabama coverage along the way this season.
Yeah, you guys can follow us all over social media at Jag Nation Radio. We just recently started a TikTok with, and it's got some stuff out there since we're young, and that's the hit thing too, I guess. But you can also follow that at Jag Nation Radio, and we post content a lot, especially with the season coming up. We'll have something out every week. In fact, we just posted an episode tonight covering the preseason game right before this, or the preseason, just like a special. Yeah. So, that's out there already. So y'all should go listen to that.
Nice. We will definitely do so. So, guys, thank you very much, and we'll definitely see you more down the road. Maybe I'll see you guys in Boone for that one. Making the trek?
Probably not. No, since it's Thursday and we have school. Yeah.
It's only like a 13-hour drive or something. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I don't think it's that. I think it's like 9, but yeah, that's a lot. Well, if it happens for any reason, let me know. I'll make sure you have a good time up there. And if not, well, I'm sure we'll at least chat or talk some trash before that one gets rolling.
Will do. All right. You have a good night.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Oh, man. Good times. Those are by far the youngest guys we're going to have on the show here tonight, TJ. But some good guys there at Jag Nation Radio. Always fun to interact with them.
Sure.
But it's now time to add in the trash talkers of all trash talkers.
I was so hoping that I could be on when these guys came on. I was so because I can't wait. I love talking to them. I love talking trash. Get them on the screen so we can get this thing going. I want to listen. I'm trying to drive, but I want to see their faces and look at them. I wish they could see me as well because there's a lot going on with these guys, and I'm really, really excited to talk to them. Well,
here's the surprise of the night. We got 2 guys on audio, so I'm going to go full screen for a minute as we introduce Seabass from the Troy Boyz, who's going to come on and bring the excitement and the energy and the little trash talk that we were promised from Joe earlier this week.
Yeah, that's right. Hi, boys. How y'all doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I got a quick question for y'all. How's that space that you had set aside for that conference championship trophy doing?
It's already starting.
It's collecting some dust, ain't it?
Yeah. Well, it's being kept company by some other trophies that we've got. So
yeah. Okay. Hey, did you see our trophy case? Because I think we got a couple more than y'all.
I missed that one because it wasn't as relevant.
Oh, okay. Oh, well. Yeah, I'll let you have that one for now.
Yeah, we're just dusting off that spot so we can fill it with this year's trophy because you ain't getting back there. I can tell you that.
Okay. Okay. Hey, we'll see.
There we go.
It's a long season.
That is a long one. It is a long one, and we're just getting started. And speaking of getting started, what do we think we're going to see out of Troy? I mean, it's not quite ULM turnover with 74 different roster spots, but you also do have a new coach, and you do still have some roster turnover. And unfortunately, your coach took a couple of your real good players, talented players, along with him to Tulane. So where does that leave the Trojans coming into this season?
Well, if you had listened to our preview episode that we did this past week, we really hammered home the fact that this really is a big rebuild for Troy. For a team that's in and out, pretty standard, a powerhouse in the Sun Belt. This is kind of a big undertaking for our program. We're starting clean and fresh with all of our coaching staff. Everyone that's coming in is new to us, with the exception of a couple that we've worked with before, but are now coming back home to Troy. We only have 37% return in production. That's 129th in the nation.
Wow.
So we've really lost a lot of talented players. And many have gone on to the next level, and many have transferred out to bigger and better things for themselves. And, good on them. But from Troy's perspective, this really is a big rebuild. And everybody asks, what's the team going to look like? What's the scheme going to look like? And the correct answer is no one knows.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Is what? Not to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, you're good,
Dominic. Sorry for jumping in here, but yeah, that was going to be my question. Was with the turnover that you guys are having and experiencing, like what can we expect? Like, what's the? I don't want to have you predict a record, right? Like, because no one wants to do that. But
we've already done that, though.
Well, I guess you have. But
I want to hear it.
Just
we'll get there.
yeah,
There
but
you go.
just tell us. I mean, kind of what you guys are thinking, like, because this is unprecedented, right, for you guys, at least for Troy. And then again, people moving on, guys transferring in, players leaving. What does that look like for you guys, and what is the expectation from a fan perspective? And then I guess from a reality perspective, what can we all expect?
Yeah, and you're kind of hitting the nail on the head. This is unprecedented for us. Before we had Coach Larry Blakeney, an institution in college football,
right?
And should be in the College Football Hall of Fame long term. At the time, he was the only coach to take a team from Division II up into Division 1A, successfully jumping all the hoops and getting us there. And continuing to be successful and continuing to grow and continuing to be a powerhouse. We find our way to the Sun Belt, really put our foot down and really control some things. And then he left, and then we had Neil Brown come in and do what he did and left to West Virginia. And then we had Chip Lindsey, which that was a dark era. And then we had John Summerall, who's just left to go to Tulane. So this really is not something that the fan base is used to. And so I've really said and tried to help people understand and really jump on board with, you got to give it time. That this is not going to be something that we're going to be comfortable with. But I think that with having many new players and getting a new coaching staff at one time, it's going to be easier for them to instill their culture. Just because they're not going to get a lot of pushback. This is the way it's going to be because this is the way we're going to do it. And Jared Parker came from Notre Dame. He's currently the head coach, and he was their offensive coordinator over there. And last season, they were very Jekyll and Hyde. It was very hit and miss with their offense. Their pass game, really strong, and then they would dip for 2 or 3 games. And Marcus Freeman really wanted to lean into the run, and they weren't built for that. And Marshall was a team that exposed them. Yeah, I mean, there were lots of negatives in the way that they wanted to run things, but I don't think that was all Jared Parker's doing. Because when I feel like whenever the team shift, like you could watch, I didn't do a lot of deep watching in Notre Dame, but after he became the coach, I just did some. But you could see in some games that there were clearly designed pass plays that worked for them, and then all of a sudden they would ignore that and do something that seemed like it was out of a Madden playbook. You know what I mean? Like it was predetermined, and as opposed to doing what worked for them in the moment. And I don't know if that was Jared Parker's doing or if that was something else. But the offensive coordinator that we brought in was Sean Ragin. He was the quarterback coach at Troy. He was there at the end of the Larry Blakeney area and again for the Neil Brown era, and then left to West Virginia and has since come back. And he has developed some quarterbacks that the Trojan faithful are real comfortable with. Corey Robinson, Brandon Silvers, Caleb Barker, just to name a few. So
never heard of them. No.
Okay. Right. Yeah, never. I feel like that's a good thing for us, and that's somebody who, one, can connect to the fan base pretty well. 2, has a good understanding of what the expectation is, and 3, has a clear reputation of developing quality quarterbacks. And so we currently have Goose Crowder set to be QB1 right now. And we're kind of excited about that. I've been screaming, "Let loose the goose" for a while, and all the naysayers out there might say something, but I was not the biggest Gunnar Watson fan. I'm gonna say it. I wasn't.
We know. Trust
y'all.
me.
Everyone knows. Everyone knows. I was the one that didn't like him. Everybody else loved him, but I wasn't a big Gunnar Watson person. So I was the let loose the goose person. So here we are. We're gonna finally let him go and fly high, and we'll see how he goes. But as far as what the scheme's going to look like, no one really knows. And they've been pretty tight-lipped about it. That there's hardly any film of them doing anything practicing. The T-Day game that we had back in April wasn't a traditional game. They did more kind of like run routes, little drills more than anything, and they awarded points doing that. So to actually see what we're going to look like, I don't think anyone truly knows yet.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions was, what do you think the team is going to look like? And you answered that kind of not knowing, especially in your T game. It's difficult, right? Because you bring in a new regime and you bring in new players and you've got such high turnover. I guess Mike, and I don't know how close you are in terms of the team set up and culture and I guess leadership and who the guys are going to respond to. But if you have any insight into that, kind of tell me what this new regime is bringing in from a philosophical standpoint, right? Like what can the fans expect to kind of buy into? What is it going to look like? And I don't mean X's and O's, right? Like, because we can sit here all day and talk about what plays could happen, can happen. We know, I know you want to let loose the goose and all those things and talk about player ability, but from just a locker room and a culture standpoint, what is the expectation of how this team is going to rally back this year?
So I'm going to be real. I don't have a lot of insight into that kind of stuff. It all comes second and third hand to us from trusted resources.
Okay.
But from what I've heard from select individuals, they've said that the team does respond very well to Coach Parker. And they do seem to have this era of respect in the room. But as far as like building a culture and what that culture looks like, I really can't say, to be truly honest.
That's fair. That's a fair point. I guess I say that asking as a person who had played for App State and knows kind of what to expect each year. I guess for me, one of the biggest challenges that you can always face, and not to drag out this segment too long, but one of the challenges that anyone faces when you bring in a new regime is what the response, not just from a fan base standpoint, but from a player perspective, like what to expect and those kinds of things is hard, right? Because you don't know what this person's going to bring in. You don't know who they like. You don't know what style of play they like. Obviously you've got history on your side in terms of what you can kind of lean on in terms of what the the coach has done in previous schools that he's been at. But it's just hard to kind of gauge based on because there's so many factors, right? Because there's talent, because you have to build your scheme and your culture around your talent. But then the other part is, is that going to integrate properly with the team, and is it going to feed into the skill set that we have? So it's a tough question to answer. I appreciate you being honest about it, but it's one of those things that's going to be extremely important for Troy. And I say this because Troy has always been a perennial powerhouse in this conference, right? It's always been, or as long as you guys have been in it, you've been certainly a thorn in my side. And
deny that.
It's just one of those things where I'm trying to get our App State followers, give us some hope, right? Like, can we beat you, and what does that look like?
Well, good for you that you're not on our schedule this year. So,
well, that depends. How you guys do in the West, and we'll see. Because I certainly predict App State winning the East.
So, okay, yeah.
So schedules might not matter when it comes to that.
Hey, you got to beat Georgia Southern first. I'm just saying.
Don't worry about us. We'll be fine.
Now I'll watch the game.
Hey, we handled them last year. We handled them 55-21 or whatever it was.
Okay, yeah.
Oh man! But to wrap it up here, you've got an out-of-conference slate that's actually pretty exciting, I think. I mean, you've got a pretty good team in Nevada who comes to you instead of having to travel out there. Then you travel to one of the G5 favorites for later in the year, as far as CFP thoughts are concerned, in Memphis, and then you follow that up with a trip right back out or up, I guess, to Iowa, and then you finish out with what's probably the easiest out of all four of them with Florida A&M as an FCS team. But what is the fan base, and Seabass, what are you maybe most excited for shot-wise? I'm interested to see if you'd rather have the shot at the ranked team here in Iowa or the team that is supposed to be one of the best group of 5 teams for this season.
I'm more excited for the Memphis game. I don't like to use the term measuring stick game, and we kind of talked about that in our preseason, that this really is not a good measuring stick game for us. I'll kind of go game by game. Nevada, they come to us. That's a haul, right? That's a far trip. And Troy, I'm sure y'all know, is not an easy place to get to. It is difficult to get to Troy. There is no direct road or access into town. So that's going to be a difficult trek for them to get over here. And then the week prior, they have a game as well, I believe against SMU. Don't quote me on that. But so we're their second game. And so we will have film on Nevada going into this game. They won't have film on us. And they're going to be poised to make a pretty far trip. Their defense is embarrassing. So I'm gonna say that truthfully is the easiest game of our non-conference slate. Is probably going to be Nevada.
Okay.
Memphis is going to be a tough game. Everywhere that we are weak, they are strong. Everywhere that they are potentially weak, we have a lot of question marks. So I feel like if this game was last year, this would be the highlight marquee matchup of the group of 5. No questions asked. But this year, with us doing this rebuild, this is just not the same caliber game this would have been last year. So I mean, I'm looking at this Memphis game and I'm not chalking it up as a loss, but I'm chalking it up as it's not the game we thought it was going to be going into it last year.
Fair.
Iowa, look, their defense is just stout. That is who they are,
and they always are.
They always are. They always will be. And this is a game that a good group of 5 team that has a really high powered offense could take advantage of their low scoring capabilities. You know, if you get 10 points on Iowa, you might win the game.
Yeah, that's
I'm being real.
Yep.
Now Goose Crowder, I don't know that he's gonna be able to handle it. Not saying he can't. Again, there's just so many question marks that you look at these games and say, last year, this was attainable. This year, we don't know yet. I feel like the Nevada game is going to give us some confidence. The question is what does Memphis look like? And then how do we respond at Iowa? Are we going to roll over and just take it and look ahead? Or are we going to fight it out? Are we going to put the nose down and build and develop? There's going to be a lot of growing pains this season. Bird said that a lot in our preview, that this season is nothing but growing pains. There's a lot of youth. There's a lot of development that's going to happen. And that's going to be a game that tells me more than anything is what kind of a team do we have? What does our grit level look like? Do we have the capability and caliber to go into the conference slate and dominate? Or are we just going to live with 4th in the conference? And I feel like that's going to be the game that lets us know that. FAMU, I've been sounding the alarms. This team, not a joke. This is a serious FCS team.
They are.
FAMU's offense is impeccable. Their defense is better. Their scrimmage game that they had 2 weeks ago, their defense didn't let up any points until the final 2 minutes. That is insane of the kind of defense that they have. And they're going to come into Troy and say, this is our chance right here to topple who was one of the best last year in the group of 5. And they're currently running to find a spot in the playoffs in the FCS, which is unheard of for a SWAC team. So they are poising themselves to be a quality opponent in any level. And I'm kind of concerned about them. I don't think of, your rollover FCS team. You need to think of like Abilene Christian 5-10 years ago. You should be thinking of North Dakota State. That's the kind of caliber that they're going to bring to Troy this year. So FAMU is not going to roll us over. It's going to be tough. The Rattlers are going to come and strike. See, you get the pun? Yeah, there it is.
I like
there it is. Yeah, there it is. But we could probably come out 2-2 on this, and I'd be happy with that. 3-2, I'd be even happier. 4-0, you know what? We're going to take it all again. But I think 2-2 is pretty realistic looking at the slate right now.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think, and it's also a credit to you guys for looking at things realistically. I mean, it's never easy to redo the season you just had with all the talent on your roster and the coach you had, switch all those things up. Not every single one, obviously, but a number of them that are important factors, and think it's just going to be, able to be done again.
Oh yeah. And look, we catch a lot of slack out there on TroyFans.com for this. But, we got to try to live life a little pragmatically. Of course, we want Troy to win by 50 every game. That's
Right.
Who wouldn't? Even App State fans want Troy to win by 50. But
100%.
But you got to live life pragmatically, and we know that we're down, and everybody else in the Sun Belt West knows that we're down, and they're sitting here saying, "This is our chance. We're back. This is our team." That's what Texas State said the last 2 seasons. It didn't work for them. Arkansas State's been saying it to 2018. It ain't worked for them. South Alabama going to embarrass themselves again. What else is new? So
love it. I love it.
The only team that I'm genuinely worried about is Louisiana Lafayette, and no one's talking about them right now.
Oh, by the way, they don't like to be called Lafayette. Just so
No,
you know.
yeah, they do. It's the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. It will forever be ULL in my heart.
I'm just letting you know what I was told the other week.
Yeah, and they can say what they want, but you know, that's what they get for choosing to be called Louisiana Lafayette and then changing their mind later. That's what they get.
Man.
Love
man.
So,
I freaking love it.
Shout out to Fanplex who put up the swords. In case you guys can't see it on the screen.
Yeah, I see it. Cry Havoc, baby.
Yeah, have you seen the posters that they've released yet?
Yes, I have. I saw them. I saw the tag this morning.
Yeah, very nice.
Nice.
I like those things, man. Especially number 26. I'm going blank on his name right now.
Look, I don't know numbers. I know names.
Oh man.
DeWitt Bitterson Jr.
There it is. It is. Yep, Bitterson. I knew when I heard it, or when I could see his name, but I couldn't see enough of it to like roll off the tongue. But I knew it was close to that there. So that's my favorite one that they've got. But yeah, check those out if you're a Troy fan, and hopefully we can get them to add even more Sunbelt teams along the way. As they've got the 2 reigning division champs up there right now. Seabass, tell the fine people where they can find you guys and your season predictions before you get out of here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find the Troy Boys on any social media platform except for TikTok, because we're a little older than the guys out there at Jag Nation or whatever they're called. Yeah, we don't
continues
TikTok.
to take shots, doesn't he?
It's so easy. Look, they're sitting here complaining about coming on a podcast at 8:30 on a weekday night. Like, I get it. It's South Alabama. It's hard to read and then talk in the evening.
Oh my God.
But hey, you know, look, I walked on campus and I also earned a diploma from South Alabama. Okay. It's not exercise sciences, to be exact, was the degree I got handed.
Oh my God.
So I would be remiss if I didn't say again, we're the Troy Boys podcast, boys with a Z, because we're cool like that, on all the socials. And feel free to find us, on social media. Like I said, we also stream on all the major platforms. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts is no longer a thing. That's over on YouTube Music. And Spotify and others. And I would be remiss if I didn't say a couple of things before I give our final remarks here on their final picks. Our special teams this year is probably going to be the only thing that we're real comfortable with. Scott Taylor Renfro coming back to kick for us, brought to you by Jones Oxygen, the only oxygen supplier you'll ever need in the Wiregrass. And Robert Cole is set to punt for us again this season. If you haven't seen yet, the Trojan Ale is coming out. We have an official beer now for the Troy Trojans, brought to you by Folklore Brewing and Meadery. It's on the south side of Dothan. That's about an hour and 15 or so from Troy. So that'll be available at the first home game and games beyond. And as always, you can catch us before home games at the Barbecue House on beautiful 231. Get your wings, smoke them, and drop them. Preseason predictions. Again, we really don't know, so we're trying to live life comfortably. The goal is a bowl game. And so for myself and Joe, we're living at 7-5, and Bert is sitting at 6-6.
Okay.
But again, the more the merrier. But I feel like a bowl game is, of course, the goal for all of Trojan Nation right now.
Makes sense.
You sir are a savant.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh man, we really enjoyed it, Seabass. Thanks for bringing the Troy Boys swagger and trash talk to the episode tonight, and we will certainly see you guys again down the road.
Yeah, no problem. And everybody can go ahead and sign off, because it's not going to get better from here.
What was crazy is I actually was going to, because I'm about to hit a dead area on the highway.
No,
I just want people to know that I'm not doing it because he said it. I'm doing it because it's an actual hazard. Okay?
Yeah,
I'm not doing what he tells me to do. I don't listen to him. He listens to me.
All right, Dom, TJ, appreciate it. Go Trojans, and God bless y'all, Blaze Brown.
See you, buddy.
Same to you, Seabass. See you, man. Oh, man. Good times, TJ. Will you be safe? I'm going to get rolling right into the next team and podcast as we jump into this here. and bring on To the Top Talk Jason Bailey and Patrick Lowry as I add both of them to the stage here. Welcome to the show, fellas.
What's up, boys?
How we doing?
Is that guy done already?
Yeah. Could he please stop?
I
10
mean,
minutes
like
ago?
I was just wanting to listen to a little bit more babble, a little bit more Troy. I mean, good Lord have mercy.
You know,
It's not
I
like
do
you're from
agree with
Tuscaloosa,
him.
bro. You're from
I do
Troy,
agree with
frickin'
him.
Alabama.
Troy is extremely hard to get to. Talk about a dump.
Yeah, nobody knows how to do it. Lord,
You know what this is? You know what's great about this? The East had none of this like trash talk. This is great. I love it.
Well,
I love
and it's not
everything.
even trash talk. Because look, here's the deal. I think before we get into all the questioning and everything, I think just everybody's Southern Miss, man. We've kind of been there and done that, right? I think, and we're just down. We love being in the Sun Belt and all this, but coming into all these relatively upstart programs compared to where Southern Miss has been, it's just funny. So it sounds like he was reeling off stats like he was the like you know, Troy is somehow like where Bear Bryant ruled the world or something. I don't know. I think it's hilarious to listen to it all and get us while we're down, because it's not going to happen forever. And anyway, just I was throwing up in my mouth for a good 10-minute stretch there, and I'm so glad he's gone and we're on. How are y'all? You know, and hey, and I'll say this too. I was having such a good night. It's my 8-year-old's birthday today. So,
oh man,
I'm 15 minutes away from falling into like a ice cream cake coma, and I've been looking forward to this until I got on and had to listen to that crap. So let's go.
Oh,
yeah, and by the
man,
way,
well,
we've had a beer for 3 years, so congratulations, Troy, for making it.
Yeah, way to go.
Yeah, we've been there and done that.
Huge flex.
Yeah.
It only took 2 back-to-back Sun Belt championships to earn that beer for them, so they can look at it that way, right?
Yeah, they've had a good team. Enjoy replacing all 67 players or whatever. Sweet.
Yeah. Well, speaking of replacing players, obviously you guys have had some roster turnover, some excitement in that regard, though, especially what's looking like the quarterback position. Speak to a little bit about him specifically, and maybe where you guys think some other big playmakers might be coming into this season for the Golden Eagles.
Pilo, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think there's a lot of talk, a lot of chatter. We know the last few years, it seems like we've done a lot of things all right, but we haven't really seemed to figure out that quarterback position. So obviously, it was a key factor with this coaching staff, knowing that they had to fill the role. So what do? We go out and get a guy that's got a lot of experience, and Tate Rodemaker. You know, that I think it's been leaked out that he's going to be the guy, but also behind him is a guy that's an incredible athlete in Ethan Crawford. And not to mention behind him, we have the guy that set the Mississippi record for the most touchdowns in a career, across all athletics in the state of Mississippi and high school. And so we have filled that gap a lot. I feel like, we got a guy who's played in some big games and got some experience, and it's been different. We've tried to fill the role with different guys and different skill sets, but I think Tate offers something that we haven't really had, a guy that's 6'4", can stand in there and throw it. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what happens. And then surrounded him, I think Jason's probably going to get into a lot of the guys that we put around Tate.
Yeah, well, it all starts with the quarterback, right? I mean, and he's going to touch the ball every single time. And we talked about it on our pod last night when we were going over with pretty much the entire roster with Glenn Dyer from 24/7 Sports, that every team out there, if you're any good at all, you have a dude at quarterback, and we haven't had one even through the years. I think you'd be hard pressed to find any team that you can think of, and probably at least the last 20 years, that did okay with a subpar quarterback. So the biggest thing is finding one of those. Outside of that, we have playmakers all around that have just been kind of waiting and bursting at the seams to show what they can do. We just literally hadn't had the person that can get the ball to them. You got a guy named Dreek Clark, who's going to be taking most of the snaps at running back. He'll be replacing Frank Gore. I know Frank was one of the best running backs that we've ever had. But Frank went through a stretch last year where he was down. He was dinged up a little bit. And Drake Clark looked like the better back for a good portion of the year. So, so Drake's going to get a lot of snaps. At wideout, I'm really excited about this kid named Larry Simmons. He was recruited by everybody in the world out of Moss Point High School, went to Ole Miss and didn't play a lot. So he came here and had a little ball security issues, I think, during camp or during the summer, and worked really hard on it. He's been making crazy catches out there, big target at wideout. Dennis Jackson on the other side, transfer in from Missouri, I believe. One of the fastest guys on the team. And then maybe one of the fastest players in the league, Ty Mims, will be running out of the slot along with Chandler Pittman. Those are 5 guys right there who could make some sort of like all conference team. You know, can we get them the ball enough is the question. And with a guy like Chip Long running the offense now, you know, head coach Will Hall gave up play calling duties last year, like halfway through the year, Pilo, I think.
Yep.
And so we actually went out and got an offensive coordinator now. Chip Long comes from that Petrino tree, you know, more stretching it more horizontally, a lot of screening, a lot of just getting your playmakers into space.
Yep, a lot of tempo.
Yeah, and letting them make that first guy miss and go. Yeah, up tempo is something we hadn't seen in quite a while. Granted, you know, we couldn't stop a lot of people, and we couldn't really score enough. So we tried to make the game shorter.
We didn't really want to go fast.
Yeah, that's all on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, very similar. I mean, a new defensive coordinator there. From what I understand, it's way more aggressive, way less cerebral. So you just can kind of turn your athletes loose. To me, that says you're probably going to have a lot more sacks and maybe a lot more plays given up deep. But going against Chip Long's offense every day, I think that's going to groom them, you know, pretty well for what they'll see in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm pretty sure the game that Will Hall gave up play calling duties was the game at App State last year, which was, to me, shockingly
should have won it.
Should
have won it.
Yep.
Yeah, they were. That was down to a wire. It was a great game to be at. I mean, honestly, I think for either team as a fan, because it was a great game, and I think that's the upside to him giving up the play calling duties. It seemed to catch, at the very least, that App State defense, who was trying to a little bit on the upswing there, seemed to give them some issues, and then kind of help out deeper into the season there. But what are the expectations for the fan base then coming into this season? Like you said, you lose out on Frank Gore Jr., who was, like you said, maybe not at the peak of his absolute game throughout all of last season, but certainly one of the best backs to ever come through USM. Where does that put you guys, you think?
So I think the expectations, as far as from a record standpoint, are like all over the place. You have some people that just think that Southern Miss is never going to get it back, right? It's over. We had our day in the sun, and, you know, maybe every now and then we put together a decent 9-win season. And then you have other people who are like, you know what? It's year 4 for Will Hall. We stacked all these really good recruiting classes 3 years in a row. We've added some portal guys in key positions. We hopefully have found a quarterback, and, you know, anything less than 8 wins is not acceptable. So as far as what people are expecting, some people are expecting us to suck really bad, and some people are like, okay, now we're back. And, you know, I think that I fall somewhere in the middle. I don't know. Like, I think absolute floor, if you have injuries out the ass and you just can't do anything, I think that, you know, 4 or 5 wins. But then, you know, if you put a little bit together and the ball bounces the right way, I mean, I could see 8 happening. I think anything over 8 is an extreme overachievement. But I'll tell you what, we'll find out a lot that first game versus Kentucky. And I'm glad that it's Kentucky, because it was Ohio State. And,
yes.
And they had to, I think they're the ones that kind of wanted out of it. And we were like, oh, okay. You know, and we ended up with Kentucky, which is still a good school. We have a nice memory from the last time that we went up there, but that team that we had that year is not really indicative of what we have today. But it would be a nice way to just, even if you don't win that game, to prove that you kind of belong.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good, I think it's a good team to start off with. Pilo, I don't know if you feel like that, but
no, I mean, I agree. I think you're dead on with saying that the fan base is kind of scattered. I think you got people that are buying in and believing, but one thing that we're consistently hearing from a lot of people that are going to practices and scrimmages is this year's team, and I don't know if it's the addition of Long and Bignell as coordinators, but it seems to be a different energy with the Eagles, and so it seems to be a little bit. I don't know, more intensity or what it is, but I really feel like this year, hopefully, for our sake, will be a little different. But I mean, we won't know till we know. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. I am a glass half full kind of guy, so I have high expectations. But yeah, I mean, we're 9 days away from kicking it off against Kentucky, and we'll find out.
9 days. That is insane.
Yeah. I feel like I agree with someone else who said it kind of snuck up on us. I mean, we've been excited for it. We've wanted it. And then it's like, for the guys that are putting these types of things together, right? Like, you're like, oh man, like I've been doing some research, sure, but like everything's just seemed like piling up. And you're just like, all right, we got to push stuff out now because it's right here. So it's both, there's nothing bad about it, but it just gets down to the crunch time area. And now we get to start actually enjoying the fruits of all the labor we've put in on the back end to see this stuff and be able to talk more easily about what we literally just saw on the field instead of what could be. And you guys talked about.
Yeah, it's very weird. Sorry to jump in there. It is very weird when, like, the two scrimmages that I've been to, you're seeing the offense. And like, I remember, I know one time Patrick was mentioning the quarterbacks that we had, our third string guy, John White. It was a 2-play drive. We started off on, I think, the 20, and he threw a crossing route to Mims. He made one guy miss. I think he went out of bounds around the 40. They ran up tempo, looked one way, threw it the other way, scored in the corner of the end zone. So on one hand, you're like, wow, that was cool. Reminds me of Fedora. Reminds me a little bit of Todd Monken when he was here. On the other hand, you're like, or does our defense just suck? Right? So you don't – it's good and bad.
Right. That makes sense. I know you guys talked about the excitement with going up against Kentucky, a really tough opponent. I believe they're ranked coming into the season, actually. Maybe barely, but they are on there. Jacksonville State versus Southern Miss. Is that one that you guys look forward to? I mean, I know it's obviously not a home game. I mean, is it more exciting to bring in a USF who, I mean, played Alabama close last year, so they've got some talent over there as well. Which game? Maybe, again, we start there with Kentucky. It's got to probably be the biggest. But which game maybe after that one is a question mark for me, because you've got two really good ones there in a row as well.
I mean, as far as non-conference goes, I think I'm looking forward to USF. They have a really good quarterback. Of course, USF, we were conference mates with them for a while. Yep. So I think that's another good measuring stick. I think that most people would say, well, I hope you play good at Kentucky. You're probably going to lose. Of course, they said that last time, and we won. But Southeastern, I think most people are probably chalking that up as a W fairly easily. And I think USF might be the, like in our weight class, Yeah. So maybe that's 3 good games to start off with. A winnable game that, if you win, it's an upset. A game that you should probably roll and be able to correct some things from game 1. And then game 3, you got a puncher's chance before you head into, Rich Rod land over there at Jacksonville State. So of the non-con, I think USF is probably the one I'm looking most forward to. And it's at home. That helps. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Bulls coming to town.
Nice. Philo, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, a win week 1 would be massive. I think it would get a lot of people back on board early, and then that game in Hattiesburg obviously would be electric. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing South Florida again. I think that game, like Jason said, a former conference mate in that, hadn't played them in a while. But yeah, the Jacksonville State game is interesting. I mean, they were 9-4 last year, a good team. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, maybe 10 years ago or something, we would kind of laugh at that on the schedule a little bit, maybe. But you know, now, you know, I feel like the playing field has kind of got a lot more even in you know, in our side of the group, and so yeah, I mean, it will
That
be
Jacksonville
interesting.
State game, I think you just take the over. If you don't have a dog in the hunt, I think you just take the over.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
everybody scores. Yeah.
Not a bad. Are you guys either gonna go up there?
I am either going to go to that game. It's possible I'll be in Boston. So our defense coordinator last year, Dan O'Brien, is now at Boston College. And they are playing, I believe, Michigan State on that weekend. The kicker is the night before, the Red Sox are playing the Minnesota Twins, and we have one of our all-time great baseball players is starting in right field right now for Minnesota. So if I can somehow parlay that into a Friday night at Fenway and then see Michigan State play Boston College, you know, and hang out with my buddy, you know, that could trump this Jacksonville State thing. But the problem is it's like a continent away, you know, so I have to figure out all the logistics there. But if I do not go to Boston, I will definitely be at Jacksonville for sure. Never been, never even been through the town, I don't think.
Yeah, I haven't either. So it would be an interesting interesting one to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the very next week, I don't know if you're just running down the schedule or not, but the very next week, the Ragin Cajuns come to Hattiesburg. It's so fun playing those guys.
Yeah,
I know we win a lot, and we shouldn't even do it in basketball and whatever. We're not always better. We just typically always play really well. Or I don't know what it is.
It seems to be that game every year that it always clicks, and I kind of feel bad in both regards. It's like on paper they should absolutely hammer us, especially, you know, year we didn't even have a quarterback. I think we played the super back and beat them, and so it's like we were on our 9th or 10th quarterback at that point and dominate the game. And so it's like, I mean, I know that mistakes happen and that's why you play the game, but it always seems to click against them. And I know it's frustrating as a fan. We love those guys over there, and it's a great place. It's a great place to go to. Great food. If you haven't been to Lafayette for a game, you're missing out because the food is outstanding. So
yeah, I do think that's part of it too. Is that I always have a good time around these people, and we do, and it does probably help that we usually win. But I've never had any problems. Like, you know, I remember like in the former Conference USA days, like, I mean, you would damn near get in a fight every time you went to Louisville, or just I don't have great feelings about anybody that ever goes to South Alabama. It's just this. Maybe it's the upstart. Maybe it's the upstart in the programs. Look at our field. I'm like, bro, this is a minor league stadium. We have a football field. Come check it out sometime. I don't know. It's this weird new kid on the block thing that is it's just a strange dynamic, and I don't feel that way when we play the Cajuns in any sport.
Nice. Well, I think
that's a good take.
Yeah, that is a good take. Respectable. And yes, the food phenomenal. So if you haven't been, you need to. Maybe not the best year to do it because of the construction with the stadium, and there's going to be all like their fans don't even know what's going on fully yet. We'll get into that with the Ragin review guys here in a minute, but yeah, it's a lot of question marks, but 25 should be better as far as going to plan a visit to Lafayette there and see the Cajuns if you haven't done so. But guys, are there any last thoughts? And certainly, even if there is, also tell the people where they can find you and follow along with Southern Miss along the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at least from following us and find us, I'll cover that, and Jason can cover anything else he wants to say. But obviously, To the Top Talk on any of our platforms, we do about a weekly show, but we're also doing a lot of lives now. So we're doing kind of post games and after games and different things like that, some live shows during the week, some call-in type shows for our fan base and stuff. It's been really well received. And so main place primarily is X or Twitter. We've got a huge following there, and our fan base eats it up. So To the Top Talk, you can reach out to us on any of the social networks, but primarily Yeah, like on, we're on all those Spotify's and Apple Podcasts and all that stuff, but also live a lot on X, YouTube, and Facebook.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that I'll leave with is I do think that Southern Miss has a fair shot of halfway through the season looking like a legitimate football team, and then that back half is just brutal, man. I mean, we do have Arkansas State at home for homecoming, then at James Madison, Marshall at home, and out in San Marcos versus Texas State, South Alabama, who we've still never beat. It just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like when I was talking about how we always beat Louisiana, how that doesn't make any sense either. Us never beating South Alabama just seems incorrect, if it doesn't seem like it's possible. So, and then finally the last game of the year, which I definitely have circled after listening to that idiot that we had on beforehand, but the last game, Troy. I really hope that when we get to those last two games, that both of them mean something, right? And I think we have a legitimate shot for both of those games to be meaningful. So. Yeah, that would be my prediction, and hopefully when we get to that point, we still have something to look forward to.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys very much for jumping on with us tonight and sharing your thoughts on Southern Miss, and we'll be sure to follow to the top talk all the way till the end of the season.
No doubt.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for having us.
Enjoyed it.
Guys. Next up tonight, we've got Squarin' Around, the podcast that covers Texas State, featuring Jacob Rodriguez and Andrew Zimmel. Welcome to the show, fellas.
Hey, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you guys on. As Andrew and I were talking before we got rolling here, a lot of excitement about Texas State. Real quick, note that I got to go down to Sunbelt Media Days, as some people heard last week. I swear Texas State brought the most amount of people out of all of the teams, whether it was East or West. It just seems like they feel it. They know it. There's a lot of excitement about your guys' team coming into this season.
Too much. I think sometimes it makes me nervous, actually, how much people are like hyped about this team. Not that I don't believe in the players and the coaching staff, but it's crazy to think that this little team is now like on the national scale sometimes, because we were covering this team when it was not. Right, Zim?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that, Jake, that you talk about a lot of people coming to media day for Texas State. People forget, fourth biggest public university in the state of Texas. It's about damn time when we start acting like it. We start like putting a product on the field and actually showing that we are what we are, which is a great football program. But yeah, Jacob is right. And I joked earlier that we're covering a team now that potentially could win maybe 10, 11 games. And we've seen teams that did not combine for 11 wins over like 4 or 5 seasons. So I'm very happy with what we have going on right now.
There's some guys that went to graduate school that still didn't see.
Yes.
4 or 5.
There are dudes who went to grad school who did not see Texas State win a non-conference, non-FCS game. The Texas State lost all of their non-conference games that weren't FCS. So yeah, and then some of them went and they still lost to FCS schools. So it's just tough. It's just tough. So it's a refreshing change of pace for Texas State fans for sure.
All last year, I was like, I think I'm on like an acid trip. Like that's truly what the entire experience felt like. I was just like walking around the stadium, like completely dumbfounded by the attendance, number one, and like how much people bought in and how quickly, and then the results on the field. It was insane.
And we would do the podcast before we even started recording it, like the year prior, the last year of Spavital. Jacob and I would call each other after Texas State games and be like, did you see how awful that game was? So to record a podcast every single week last year, and we go like, we're very firmly a 6-6 podcast. We think 6-6, go to a bowl game, maybe win a bowl game, but get to a bowl game 6-6. And for that to be blown out of the water and go 8-5, and it was an 8-5 season that could have maybe been 10 win season. So coming into this year, I feel pretty good. And rat poison be damned. I feel okay about this Bobcats.
Nice. Yeah. So speak about going into the season a little bit. We'll get into that one, and then we'll come back to some of the additions you guys got. You guys have an expectation. The fan base has an expectation. Do those things kind of align? Is the hype too much? Is the rat poison going to get to them? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
the rat poison will not come to Texas State because we're not built. We're Bobcats, not Bob Mice. All right. I feel great.
I don't like that at all.
You didn't like that one? I thought it was a good one.
That
No, the rat poison thing is fine because GJ Kenny from day one has said, like, it does not matter what the outside noise is. It's week by week, 1 week at a time. That's what they're most concerned about, which is great for any fan base to be like, okay, hey, our head coach knows what he's doing? Question mark. I think a lot of fan bases might not think that about their head coach, but for Texas State fans, I feel pretty confident saying that they have all the trust in the world in GJ Kenny. The expectations for the season with the fans, look, when you're a spurned lover over and over and over again, you tend not to go into a different relationship. I think last year was like the end of season 1 being like a great romantic gesture. Now we're rolling into season 2. Is there a ring in the box? Maybe, maybe not. It's will they, won't they type of thing. I'm locked in on season 2 of Texas State under GJ Kenny.
Yeah, and I love The Bachelorette. So this whole spurned lover thing that Zimmel's talking about is right up my alley, actually, because I think like all last year, it was a great season of The Bachelorette, except it really didn't align because it was the Golden Bachelor and there was kind of something. And literally as soon as the season ended, everybody was like, well, GJ Kenny's leaving.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, wait, what? What's going on? And so now that that's not a thing, and GJ Kenny is actually at a school for his second year at a school ever, you're like, oh, wow. Are there things in I was at practice this past weekend, and I was like, big time program? Are we a big time program now? We got stadium renovations going on. We got boosters hanging out at practice. We got multiple media people. And by multiple, I mean it was me and 4 other guys. But still, there's something.
Not one, but 2 podcasts showed up to this. It's crazy. Like, we're uncharted waters.
We are cooking with guys. I remember going to practice and it was just me. I remember going to games and it was just me on the sidelines the entire game.
The only thing now that we're missing is local TV. Once we hit that local TV money, Austin, San Antonio wants to come watch the practices, we know we made it. But right now, it's just the little old podcasters, a couple newspaper guys. But you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. You definitely do. So it sounds like it's building and it's continuing to build, and it's going to likely get to a crescendo and hopefully one that is favorable for the Bobcats. I know there's a lot of excitement. We were talking a little bit before we started about Ishmael Mahdi and Caleb Culp, who both been featured on our show, luckily enough.
Humble brag.
Some real excitement with those. Those guys are just literally all-stars in their positions, and both made the move up from FCS with Coach Kenny, which is awesome to see that guys want to stick with him. And now he's returning that, like you guys said, with staying with the team for the first time ever past one season. But I mean, it's a good problem to have, because if you have a guy like that, that means he's a damn good coach, and he's probably helping you guys with the product on the field. So a lot of excitement there. Speak to some of the other guys that I haven't yet mentioned that have come into your team from other places, and you expect to do big things for the Bobcats this season.
Well, I'm going to cheat. Do you want to go with it, or do you want me to take a jig?
Nah, that's okay. You go.
All right, Jordan McLeod. Obvious answer. I'll take 1-1, number 1 pick off the board. When you go get the Sunbelt Player of the Year, played his football at JMU last year, when you get a guy like that to come in, and not only to come from a rival school in the conference, JMU might be the team that Texas State plays in the conference championship game. They were legitimately one of the best Group of 5 schools last year. If they could have gone to a bowl game, they would have. And they probably would have got a New Year's Six bowl. They were that good. So you go get their starting quarterback to come to your school. You're adding, again, the best player in the conference to one of the best offenses in the country. That, to me, is the obvious answer. Is like the biggest get in the offseason. I would argue top 10 get in the offseason by any program in this general region. I don't think this one doesn't come to my mind of any school in the Southeast, either the Sun Belt or the SEC, getting a player impactful as Jordan McLeod at the most important position, quarterback.
Yeah, very true. And JMU did go to a bowl game. They did get the approved.
Yeah,
but they probably don't want to remember that one because they got trounced by Air Force pretty bad. So we'll skip over that.
They had a bunch of guys sit out.
They did. They lost their coach. They had guys sit out. Yeah, they were not at regular season look or strength as it will be.
In the
Jacob,
Bachelorette terms, that Lockheed Martin Bowl was like if you make it to the Air Force, if you make it to hometowns, and you are from like not a great hometown, like your hometown is like, I don't know. I'm from the Valley,
Colorado Springs.
If I had to take a girl back home to the Valley and she was like a bachelorette girl, I don't think it would bode well for me. No.
Would you lie and say you're from San Antonio?
Yeah, I might have to, honestly.
Just to get the big town in there.
Just to get the big town in there, yeah.
Do you agree that Jordan McLeod's just that big of a factor that he's going to be like the sole one we're going to focus on, or you have another guy you think might make some impact elsewhere?
I'll pick another guy because I'm all the way bought in on how good Sparks is. Like he is ridiculous in college football. There's a cracked play that I use all the time. It's like Z cross dig or something like that. It just hit Bo Sparks down the middle on a cross, and then he just takes it all the way. And GJ Kinney assured me he is that fast. I went out and saw him. He is that fast. Yeah, I think he could be crazy. He's out of Utah Tech. That's where Joey Hobart was from. That's our like wide receiver factory, I guess. I couldn't even really point out Utah on a map to you if you really asked me. But I'm glad that they're making him there like that.
Yeah, that's his stats at Utah Tech are like jump off the page phenomenal. So if he can replicate that at this level, you guys have a 1-2 punch combination. Not to mention your running back roster or crew or room, whatever you want to say, which is one of the deepest in all of the conference.
Our stolen wares from UTEP.
Yeah, the UTEP running back room that has just come to a nicer area of the country. Shout out,
Yeah.
Enjoy
absolutely.
San Marcos.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's get to some of the exciting stuff, guys. The part everybody wants to hear about the most, the out-of-conference slate. And we all pretty much know where this is going, but there was two up here that I thought were even possible to be talking about and focused on the most as far as which one's the most exciting. To note, none of these are true road games. The Sam Houston State is at NRG Stadium in Houston. Everything else is right there at your newly renovated home stadium with new turf. All the money in Texas being thrown at it, it feels like. Which one are we going with here?
As far as like the most excitement?
Most excitement or
It's got to be Sam Houston State, right, Jake?
Oh, yeah. I can't wait till week 4. We're going on a road trip, right, Zim?
Yeah, a little NRG Stadium action. Ooh. No, and clearly it's UTSA. Clearly UTSA, September 7th is the game. There's so many layers to that, right? Like layer number 1, the fact that Texas State has not beaten UTSA when the last 5 chances. Layer number 2, the fact that Texas State should have beat them last year in the Alamo Dome, but Frank Harris just turned out to be Superman or whatever. Deadpool. He came back from the dead.
Yeah, that's
no idea how that guy played. Probably need to look into that. Look, I'm just saying he's not playing football now. There could be a reason for that because of how many hits he took in that game. Layer number 3, student versus master, Trailer versus Kinney.
Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Mr. Miyagi versus
Daniel LaRusso.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is it's master versus student. There's so many layers to this. And then layer number 4, the fact that UTSA might be the most toxic fan base on social media, point blank period. Like I have seen
only by Texas State.
Followed only by Texas. I have seen more vitriol directed towards Texas State by UTSA fans. Like, and the thing is, Texas State could all right, there could be like a water balloon competition. And if Texas State lost, UTSA fans would be in the comments being like, you guys suck. You don't even like, what are we doing? Like, it's just,
Dominic,
that is the biggest game.
This is how bad this is. Grown men will dress up in full pads and then drive to San Marcos.
Like an hour.
Take a picture with a Texas State sign on campus, post it to the internet on their real account, and then go, haha, we won. Like, what are we doing?
Like, you drove an hour up 35 in the traffic to take a photo outside Texas State to be like, we beat you 5 times. What we need to do is we need to get like a patrol group of like squirt guns. And like, you see somebody do that, just start squirting them. You know what I mean?
Pause.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that I saw that and I was wondering, I was like, that can't be a player, right? So it was just a fan who had
a random guy on the internet. Yeah.
They pulled some guy off the
into his
street.
9 to 5 the next day.
Yeah, he had to go into work and be like, "Hey, what'd you do over the weekend, Derek?" "Oh, I put a helmet on, pads, and a shirt, and drove up to Texas State to take a picture. I'm a real cool guy."
Yeah, about 7 p.m. on a Saturday night. That's what I was up to.
Derek, go get us our coffees.
I think the fries are done, Derek. Go over there.
Yeah, exactly. Put the fries in the bag, Derek.
Big Mac and a Coke Zero, Derek.
All right. So before I let you go, at least touch on the fact that that is a huge game right before a Thursday night game at home against a Core 4 or power program in Arizona State. Obviously, there'll be a lot of excitement for that one as well, and a lot of television focus because, hey, it's a Thursday night. Not many other games on at that point. Again, I know it fails in comparison to the UTSA matchup, but is that another one that everyone's excited to have everybody see on national TV?
Well, famously, Texas State stole a Trident from Nevada last year. So Texas State's turning into the Trident school. So if Arizona State tries to pull any funny stuff, bringing a Trident into the stadium, brother, don't do it. I'm promising you right now. That band wants another one. They had the other one hanging up on the wall. They're trying to collect all the Tridents in college football. Don't do it. Leave your Trident at home, Arizona State. You don't want to get embarrassed on national TV.
What are they, Forks Up? This might be the biggest trap game of the year, especially if we come in 2-0. We go in, it's like, what is it, like 4 or 5 days of prep actually until that game leads up from Saturday to Thursday. That's a tough turn, So, yeah, I think maybe biggest trap game of the year, but I also know Arizona State's not good at all because I've played with them in college football. And I rode to glory. I was a 5-star receiver. They couldn't give me the ball in open space. Just saying. So
here's
that's
the thing.
that's my prep work for this game.
Arizona State's lucky that Texas State's getting the national recognition that they're getting, because if Arizona State comes to San Marcos and loses, well, then nationally people are going to be like, well, Texas State's good. If Texas State didn't have the season they had last year and they came into San Marcos and lost, they might have to burn the program down. They might have to just fold it up and pack it away because it would be curtains.
2 of the best journalism schools in the country going head to head on a Thursday night.
Next year, we got to play Syracuse. And then the year after that, Northwestern. Just call it the Journalism Bowl.
There you go. I like it. See, these are the kind of matchups we need to put in bowl games so that we can have stuff that matters, truly.
Stuff that matters,
but great stuff, fellas. I really appreciate it. Everybody who's listening definitely appreciates this bigger and better insight into Texas State. We look forward to following along. Let the people know where they can find you guys on socials and find your show as well.
Follow us on X at Squarin Pod. That's Squarin, but without a G, because I chose to make this the hardest thing possible to find on the internet. But once you do find it, boy, are we hard to get rid of.
Nice.
I was going to say, you can follow our personals too, Jacob Rodriguez at Andrew_Zimmel on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you later on down the road. Next up tonight, we'd like to welcome Ragin Review to the podcast with hosts Jerry, Nick, and Josh. We have Jerry joining us tonight to go over what we think of the Cajuns, or what we should think of the Cajuns coming into this season. How you doing tonight, Jerry?
Good, Dominick TJ. Thank y'all for having me. Did football season snuck up on us? I was just enjoying time at the beach recently, and then all of a sudden now we've got preseason NFL football. We've got college football season starting this weekend. Our teams play within 10 days now or something like that. So just kind of came out of nowhere. It was just, surprise, surprise, it's here.
Well, surprise to some, not to me, because like I said, I have been waiting for football season, and that's my thing. That's what I do. I wait for football season every year, and now that it's here, I cannot wait to get started. I'm ready for some pads to start popping, some trash to be talked, and ready for us to get crazy.
Yeah, man. We're down in South Louisiana. Football is a part of life. So I know probably around mid-July, right before the Saints hit training camp. And, when the magazines, all those college football magazine predictions came out, that's kind of when people started saying, oh, football's right around the corner. Here it comes, because down here, college baseball and college softball are pretty big. So people are still kind of stuck on the baseball and softball regionals. And then once that ends, unless you like soccer, you watch the Euro Cup or you watch the Olympics, there's really nothing much else to talk about. I mean, they got some Major League Baseball fans. We got the Astros 3 hours away. We've got a lot of Braves fans, and you got your typical Boston Red Sox, Yankees fans here and there. But outside of that, it's there's really not much else to talk about. So, at least we got something to converse about now for the next 5 or 6 months with football.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man. Like again, glad to have you on the show. Wanted to talk about the Cajuns. The first, obviously we've got a list of questions and things like that we want to go over. But I guess the biggest question that I guess fans of yours and really of the Sun Belt want to know is, what are some of the biggest acquisitions that you guys have made via the transfer portal, or some of the guys that you picked up along the way recruiting that you think are going to make some of the biggest impacts for your team moving forward?
No, it's a good question, TJ. One of the things that's kind of advantageous to us this year is I think we were either number 2 or number 3 in the least amount of players that went into the portal. Now, we did lose 2 key starters. We lost Zion Chris, who was our quarterback. He went to Houston. And then we lost one of our linebackers on defense, also went to Houston. So I don't know what it is about UH taking our guys, but there were key guys on each side of the football. But luckily, we didn't lose much more after that. I think we signed about 15 or 16 guys in the offseason, a few of which were a lot of local talent, 3-star players that, kind of fit into our system.
Sure.
Some guys that stand out, for example, we had a wide receiver from Edna Carr, which is pretty much a powerhouse out of New Orleans. Ragin Dennis, he's going to be really good. A lot of speed, very athletic, has some good hands. I don't know what to expect from him this year, but I know he's going to be a huge factor for us on offense in the future. We also signed a guy by the name of Steven Blanco, who's a running back out of St. Martinville, right down the street here from Lafayette. He's a good running back to complement guys like Dre Washington and Bill Davis in the backfield. Zylan Perry, he's another guy who is a veteran leader in the backfield. So we're going to have a running back tangent that's going to be pretty deep. So Blanco joining is going to help a lot. So, as far as signees go, we did sign a lot of local talent, signed 1 or 2 guys from out of JUCO who are going to be really, really helpful for us. But we did get 7 guys out of the portal. I want to say 1, 2, 3. I think all of them came from P5 schools, believe it or not, or P4 now, or almost all of them. Some key names. We got a defensive lineman from LSU by the name of Fitzgerald West. He's going to be really helpful for us. We got an offensive lineman from Mississippi State by the name of Zay Alexander. He's got a lot of size and a lot of physicality, which is going to help with our rushing attack. We signed a defensive lineman by the name of Maxi Baudouin from Tulane. So actually, I take that back. He's not all P5, but Tulane has been very competitive the last couple of years, so that's a good acquisition. And we signed a backup quarterback by the name of Adrian Lara from Kansas State. So a lot of guys that add depth to what we already kind of have a veteran roster, which is very helpful. This year, we do have a few key returning starters coming back. So this recruiting class, I thought, was very fitting for what we have now, and adding some of these guys from the portal is going to be beneficial for us to kind of add that depth and add some experience to maybe some of those guys who may be a little bit young on both sides of the football.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. That's kind of what I figured, because you pointed out that you guys have a veteran roster, and I know that Dominic knows that you guys play a lot of older guys that are on the team. In that light, kind of tell us what your expectation level is for this season. What should the fans expect? Well, let me back up. What should we be expecting from, Lafayette this year to really kind of take on and kind of take off into the next level?
Well, I think this year it depends on, it's ironic you ask that, because I tweeted something out today on our social media pages on Ragin Review. By the way, man, I don't mean to be a stickler, but we don't like to be called Lafayette. Just want to say.
My bad.
No, it's all good. I just got to give you a hard time about that. Nick and Josh tend to do it, so I said, why not? I'll do it too. Not to be too ridiculous about that. But no, seriously, in all seriousness, no, to answer your question, TJ, for us, the last 2 years, if you look, or actually the last 4 years, in 2020 and 2021, we had a combined record of 23-2. Both seasons, in 2020, we finished the year tied for the Sun Belt Conference, right? We had to get that game canceled against Coastal Carolina in the Sun Belt Championship. So we were co-champions that year, finished 15th in the country with a 10-1 record. In 2021, we finished 13-1 with a conference championship. Of course, we played you guys, the Mountaineers. I have to say you guys, I know y'all are both app guys. We played in the championship, but we finished, I think, 16th in the country that year, 13-1 record. And then Billy left to go to Florida. Billy Napier, he's at Florida now, obviously. Yep. And in those 2 seasons, there were 12 games combined in those 2 years that were decided by 7 points or less.
Wow.
You want to take a guess at what our record was in those 2 seasons, in those games?
I'll let you tell me.
11-1.
Insane.
We were 11-1 in those 2 seasons in games decided by 7 points or less. So basically, we knew how to close out games. That was our big, our big advantage. These last 2 years, Coach Mike Desormeaux takes over. These last 2 years, 2022 and 2023, we've gone 6-7 both years. 6-6 during the season, and we're 0-2 in bowl games, 6-7. And of those games, we've had 11 games with that have been decided by 7 points or less. Our record in these 2 past seasons, 2-9. 2-9 these last 2 years combined, with a record, or should I say, with games decided 7 points or less. So going into this year, I would say, and I tweeted this out today, and of course I put it on Facebook and all the pages for our fans to see. To me, the word of the day or the word of the season is finish.
Yeah.
Finish the games, close it out, finish. If we do that, like we lost at least 2 or 3, probably 3 games last year by a field goal. You close out those games, instead of being 6-7, you're 9-4. Right. Yep. That's small of a difference. 9 points. 9 points separated us from a 6-7 record to a 9-4 record. And so I think that's the key. To our fans, that's the key. We're just, the difference between the Desormeaux era and the Napier era is, in the Desormeaux era, we're just not closing out games. And that's not an indictment on the coaching staff, because we are close. We are there. It's just making those 1 or 2 extra plays, right, TJ? Like when you played, right? I mean, that one missed tackle or that one penalty or that one missed block can make a huge difference. And really, that's kind of where we are. If we do that and we learn how to finish with this veteran roster, we could be a 9-win team. I think we're that good to do that. But again, we have to learn how to finish. And so to me, that's like the key word of the season is finish. Learn how to finish. And if we do that, we can be a contender in the West and be a competitor like I know we can be and we have been in the past.
Yeah. So along with that, along with finishing, I'll kind of spiral into my next question, which is essentially, what do you expect the finish of the season to be? What record-wise, what can the fans expect? Like what do you see you guys putting out?
I think usually going into the season, when I look at our schedule, and this schedule is it's a very balanced schedule, I'd say. I mean, if we do what we're supposed to do, I'm always going to predict us to win 7 or 8 games at a minimum. You know, and look, and this is based off of, 15 years of data. And a lot of times, and a lot of our games that we finish and we find ways to win, I can pretty much say we can be an 8 or 9 win team. I think this year, another thing is injuries. I mean, can we stay healthy?
Yeah.
Last year, one of the biggest talks of our offense is, of course, the quarterback position. For 5 straight years or 4 straight years, Levi Lewis was our quarterback, and he didn't miss a step. Since Levi graduated in 2021, we've kind of had this quarterback carousel. In 2022, we were testing the waters with Chandler Fields and Ben Wooldridge going back and forth. And then last year, Ben Wooldridge gets the starting job. He gets injured against UAB, I think in the 3rd game of the season. He's out for the year. Zion Chris comes in. He plays about 3 or 4 games. He gets hurt for the year. And then Chandler Fields comes back. Well, this year, with Zion Chris being gone to Houston and Chandler Fields and Ben Wooldridge being back on the roster, both the seniors, once again, we're back to square one and in full circle of who's going to be the starting quarterback.
Right.
I think the consistency there is very key. It's very important because, based on your quarterback, as you know, right, the offense, I mean, the trajectory of your offense is dependent on your leaders, and that includes the quarterback. I think this year for me, it's going to depend on the quarterback play. I also think that if we have a new defensive coordinator, our defensive coordinator, Lamar Morgan, actually went off to Michigan, even though he's an alum. I mean, when the Michigan Wolverines, the defending national champions, come calling, you can't really say no to that. So he went off and got a secondary position. But we have a new defensive coordinator by the name of Jim. I have to pronounce his name right. Jim Salgado. He coached in the NFL for a while. He was with the Buffalo Bills for 5 or 6 years recently. I think he coached like the secondary. And then he went to Michigan State last year before coaching for the Washington Commanders for a little while. And then we called him up and we hired him as a defensive coordinator. So he's got NFL experience. The players seem to like him. He brings a certain level of raw energy. And look, we've got a veteran roster on the side of the defensive side of the ball. So, I mean, I think this year, if we do everything right, we can be an 8-win team. But if we continue to make the little mistakes and not be able to finish, we could be a 5-win team, right? So we can go from anywhere from a 5-win team to an 8-win team. Again, finish. That's the key thing. Finish.
I got you. No, and that's important, right? Because like you said, when it comes down to the last 5, 10, maybe, quarter of a football game, how do you want to be able to finish the ball? Like for a lot of teams, running the football is paramount, right? And it's key in terms of your success. Can you control the clock? Can you control, if you're up by 7 with 3 minutes left and you're on your own 40-yard, like you run the ball, kick a field goal, win the game, right? Controlling the clock, being able to make those finishes. And like you said, stop penalties, right? Making those key blocks, making those key tackles of your defense. That's what's going to lead you to being ultimately the best finishing team, that you can possibly be. So and I guess with that said, we'll transition. I know Dominick has a slide for us regarding next, your schedule. Non-conference schedule looks pretty good. I got to say, I'm excited about Tulane. I'm excited about Wake Forest. I know you talked about Grambling a little bit before we went on air and how they travel. What's some of your, I guess, most exciting games that you're looking forward to from the non-conference schedule?
So obviously I'm going to say the final two, Tulane and Wake Forest, are the ones that kind of stand out because they're kind of barometers of where we are as a program, right? So you've got Tulane that has had probably the best 2-year run that they've had in a very long time, coming to Cajun Field. And of course, they're kind of a local rival to us. So obviously everybody's going to, that's the game circled on the calendar for the home stretch, right? Of course, next to App State, actually. App State's another one that we're very excited about. But Tulane's going to be one because, of course, John Summerall's their coach now after Willie Fritz left to go to Houston. So, we have a familiar foe coming to town. I mean, he's a coach that was really successful at Troy, won 2 straight conference championships, and he has a record. He has a record of winning. And so, it's going to be interesting to see. They lost Michael Pratt. They lost their running back. They lost a few key starters for Tulane, but at the same time, he's also brought some talent in. It's going to be interesting to see where we are against them. And so that's going to be a game that's going to be really exciting. Obviously, I always enjoy the way we schedule P5 teams because a lot of the P5 teams we schedule are usually winnable games. For example, last year we went to Minnesota and we actually had them at halftime. And they just wore that Big Ten line just wore us out and we couldn't play catch up after that. We were just tired. But I give credit to Dr. Brian Maggott, our athletic director. He does a good job scheduling P5 opponents, teams that, you look on the calendar, or you look on the schedule and go, we can give them a game. Let's see what happens, Right. So I think Wake Forest is a prime example of that. I think that's going to be a game that, depends on how we play the first 3 games, where I can say, okay, we have a chance to win this. I mean, it would be nice to go on the road to an ACC school and beat them. But yeah, the last 2 games are exciting. I will say this. The first 2 games, look, I expect us to be Grambling. Kennesaw State, it almost feels like a perfect trap game.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, they are brand new to the FBS level, and we're actually their first FBS team that goes to their stadium and that they host. So they're going to be on an emotional high. They're going to be fired up. They're going to be ready to go. And usually, to be honest with you, I look on paper and say we should win that game, but I don't like being in that position either. Yeah. Does that make sense? I'm just like, man, could they have just chosen somebody else in conference to go there instead and we go next year maybe? Mm-hmm. But of course, it has to be us, and they're going to be hyped for that game. So, I mean, look, I expect us to go 2-0. I would, if we lose to Kennesaw State, it's going to be a tough road ahead for us. Man, I don't like how that game lands in week 2. I just don't. I'm not crazy about that. I expect us to win that game, but crazier things have happened, and we have a history, and we did it last year in the bowl game against Jacksonville State. We have a history for giving teams their firsts. So, I don't like how that game landed. I really don't. I wish it would have been next year.
I'm glad you said that because I think that's a factor people aren't, from outside perspective, not looking at enough. It's going to be the biggest game in their history up to that point. And, people outside of Cajun country probably don't even realize that. They're just like, oh, yeah, they should go in there and beat Kennesaw State. But like you said, anything can happen. And when the crowd's going to be on their side and going crazy because it's their first big time opponent in their stadium, it's going to mean something for them.
I look at something similar to when Troy, this was back in 2004, when Missouri, when they were in the Big 12 at the time, I think they were ranked like in the top 20, traveled to Troy. And I want to say Troy had just joined the FBS level maybe a year before or around that time.
Mhm.
And like you said, everybody thought, oh, it's Missouri. They're ranked in the top 25. They're going to go to Troy. I think that was Troy's first year in the Sun Belt, if I'm not mistaken, or second year in the Sun Belt. Oh, they're going to go over there and they're going to beat them by 3 scores. Well, lo and behold, you got guys like DeMarcus Ware that was on defense, and they beat them. They shocked the college football world and beat them. And so I look at a situation like this where, we're not Missouri, we're not ranked, but and we should win the game. But again, we're their first ever we're their first home game. I think we're their first home game of the year, and we're their first FBS opponent. So we have a history of giving teams their first win or doing something like that and being a charity. So I hope that's not the case this year, and we can start the season 2-0. Because then if you start the season 2-0, you get a bye before the Tulane game.
Right.
And so you get an extra week to rest up and get ready for them. And then on top of that, as you guys know, our stadium's under construction right now. We're doing a full-fledged renovation on the home side. So our capacity went from 41,000. I think it's going to be like 20 to 25,000 this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, at 20 to 25,000, even if you have 20,000 in the stadium, it's going to feel full, and it's the environment's going to be great. So, yeah, I'm logistically speaking, we're going to have to do our research and kind of explain to fans how to get around and stuff, because it's going to be interesting this year. I've got a 2-year-old, my daughter. She loves running on the hill in the end zone, but it's going to be interesting to say where we can go and where we can't go, because I do know, for those wondering, the whole tailgate map and the whole parking map, everything's been kind of maneuvered and configured and moved around a little bit this year because of the construction, which, by the way, should be done for 2025. And if you watch us on TV, where everything's going to be filmed and the press boxes are all moved to the student side, which now the student section is going to be in the end zone instead of behind the bench. And then the marching band is going to be moved to the end zone as well, or in the corner area. So they've really done a lot of musical chairs with our stadium. But, dude, it's an $80 million project, and it's going to be nice. If anybody really wants to know what it looks like, anybody who has the new college football 25 game, go play us there, because they actually have it all fixed and made up now. So if you want to know what the stadium looks like, just play us on the video game, and you'll see it firsthand on the game instead of
nice little plug.
Looking it up on the drawing. Look, the first time I pulled it up, because obviously I got college football 25 and I played with the Cajuns. I'm looking and I'm like, oh, so that's what it's going to look like in real time. Okay. It's a lot better than a picture,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, this was great insight to the Cajuns. Jerry, thank you very much for joining us, and tell the fine people where they can follow along with the Cajuns as we go through the season as well.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, guys. At Ragin Review, we're there on Twitter. We're on Facebook, or Twitter. Now it's X. I got to say X, right? It's on X/Twitter. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We do every once in a while we do stuff on Twitch and TikTok, but our main sources are X or Facebook. And then also, of course, you can find us on, like, we do our stuff here on StreamYard like you guys, and we do a lot of our recordings here, and we'll be recording pretty soon. I'm glad to know I can kind of kick off our season with you guys tonight. It's been a pleasure, and I thank you so much, and we're so excited about this. This is going to be year 7 for us at Ragin Review. And we do our best to get Cajun content out there from a fan's perspective, right? We always, we're not part of any type of local media or anything, but we try to show some love to Cajun Nation and kind of giving it from the fans' perspective. Just like I'm sure some of the guys from App and ODU and Southern Miss. The beauty of the Sun Belt is it's one big happy family, but we're also rivals. So
that's what you don't like, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're really excited to interact with everyone. We're very excited to continue interacting with you guys, and let the best team win this year. Should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Remember, every week is hate week in the Sun Belt. So
absolutely.
Well, that'll wrap it up, guys, and we really appreciate it, and we'll see y'all later. That is actually going to wrap it up for the full show. Thank you very much for tuning in to check out the west side of the Sun Belt, the only conference left in the NCAA football marketplace that consists of 2 divisions. So we literally have the 2 best divisions in all of college football. It's not opinion, it's fact. So thank you for tuning in. Last week to the East, this week to the West. Week 1 preview coming up with what is likely one of the games of the week in Georgia Southern and Boise State. We'll have a special surprise for you next Wednesday. Be sure to tune in for that one, and we will say goodbye to you for now. Until next time, thanks for watching and listening.